All content on this channel, including all videos, audio, and scripts, is the original work of the creator and is protected by copyright law.
Chapter 1, Lyra. Happy birthday to me. I stared at my reflection in the visor mirror of my father's rusted sedan. The glass was cracked down the middle, splitting my face into two jagged halves. It felt appropriate. There was the girl I used to be. The one who dreamed of owning a jazz club and singing until her voice gave out. And then there was the girl I was tonight. The girl being sold. I dabbed my pinky finger into the pot of concealer and pressed it against my upper arm. The bruise was a mottled purple, shaped exactly like my mother's thumb. She had grabbed me this morning before I left the house, digging her nails in just to remind me of the stakes. Do not mess this up, Lyra. Smile. Be charming. Do not let them see the fear. I layered the makeup on until the purple disappeared under a mask of beige. It was just another lie in a life built on them. My father tapped the steering wheel. His hands were shaking. He smelled like cheap cologne and old fear. We were idling at the gates of the Moretti estate, a sprawling fortress of stone and iron that loomed over the city like a sleeping beast. This was the masquerade ball, the event of the season for the criminal underworld, and I was the offering. He looked at me, his eyes watery and bloodshot. You look beautiful, Lyra. Just beautiful. They will love you. I snapped the visor shut. Do not pretend this is a debutante ball, Dad. We both know what this is. You owe the Morettis money. You do not have it. So you brought me? He flinched. It is not like that. I just need more time. If you make a good impression, if you catch the eye of someone important, maybe Leo Moretti himself, it buys us grace. Just a little grace. Grace. That was a funny word for it. The gate guard waved us through. We drove up the winding driveway flanked by cars that cost more than my entire existence. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, sleek black SUVs with tinted windows that screamed danger. We parked our sad little car in the back, away from the valet, and walked to the entrance. My dress was red. Not a soft, romantic red. It was the color of a fresh wound. It clung to my hips and dipped low in the front, bought with credit cards that were already maxed out. I pulled my black lace mask over my eyes. It felt like putting on a blindfold before a firing squad. Inside, the air was thick enough to choke on. It smelled of expensive perfume, cigar smoke, and power. A live orchestra played something classical and haunting in the corner, but the noise of the crowd drowned it out. Hundreds of people moved in a sea of silk and velvet. Men in tuxedos with holsters hidden beneath their jackets. Women dripping in diamonds that probably had blood on them. My father gripped my elbow. His palm was sweaty. Smile, Lyra, he hissed. I bared my teeth. It was the best I could do. We circulated. Or rather, he dragged me around like a show pony. He introduced me to men with cold eyes and heavy rings. They looked me up and down, lingering on my chest, my waist, the slit in my skirt. I felt their gazes like physical touches, slimy and invasive. I held my head high, channeling every ounce of defiance I had left. I was not going to let them see me crumble. After an hour, I could not take it anymore. My father's desperation was radiating off him in waves, making me nauseous. He was currently laughing too hard at a joke made by a capo who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. I need air, I whispered, pulling my arm free. Where are you going? He asked, panic flaring in his eyes. To the ladies' room, unless you want to come with me and hold my hand there too. He flushed and waved me off. Be quick. The twins are making their entrance soon. I turned and walked away before I could scream. I did not go to the bathroom. I weaved through the crowd, dodging waiters with trays of champagne, hunting for an exit. I found a set of glass doors partially hidden by a heavy velvet curtain and slipped through. Silence hit me like a physical blow. I was on a terrace. It was massive, overlooking the sprawling grounds of the estate. The night air was crisp and biting, a welcome relief from the stifling heat of the ballroom. Stone balustrades lined the edge, and ivy crawled up the walls. It was beautiful. It was quiet. I walked to the edge and gripped the stone railing, inhaling deep gulps of air. My hands were shaking. I hated this. I hated my father for his gambling. I hated my mother for her cruelty. I hated that my life had been reduced to a bargaining chip in a game I never asked to play. Got a light. The voice came from the shadows. It was deep, rough, and sounded like gravel grinding together. I jumped and spun around. I had thought I was alone. I was not. A man was standing in the darkest corner of the terrace, leaning against a stone pillar. He was huge. That was my first thought. He was broad-shouldered and tall, dressed in a black suit that fit him like a second skin. He wore a black mask that covered the upper half of his face, leaving only his jaw and mouth visible. And his mouth was a hard, unforgiving line. He held an unlit cigarette between his fingers. He was not looking at me. He was staring out at the darkness of the gardens as if he found the night more interesting than the girl in the red dress. I exhaled, trying to calm my racing heart. I do not smoke. He finally turned his head. Even through the mask, I could feel the weight of his gaze. It was heavy. Intense. It felt like he was stripping away the red dress, the lace mask, the skin, and looking straight at the terrified girl underneath. "You should not be out here," he said. His voice was low, devoid of any warmth. I lifted my chin. "It is a party. I am allowed to get fresh air. Not here. This is not for guests. I did not see a sign. That is because I am the sign." He pushed off the pillar and took a step toward me. The moonlight hit him then, illuminating the sharp angle of his jaw and the hollow of his throat. He looked dangerous, not like the slimy men inside who undressed me with their eyes. This man looked like a weapon. Cold, lethal, silent. He stopped a few feet away. The air between us crackled, charged with a sudden, strange electricity. My skin prickled. I should have been terrified. I should have run back inside to the safety of the crowd. Instead, I took a step closer. "Who are you?" I asked. He ignored the question. He lifted the cigarette to his lips but did not light it. He just held it there, watching me. His eyes dropped from my face to my bare shoulder. They lingered on the spot where I had applied the concealer. I froze. Could he see it? It was impossible. I had layered that makeup on like spackle, but the way he looked at it, with a sudden sharpening focus, made me feel exposed. "Go back inside," he said. "Make me." The words slipped out before I could stop them. My father's daughter, always pushing my luck. He moved. It was a blur of motion, too fast to track. 1 second he was 3 feet away, the next he was right in front of me. He did not touch me, but he invaded my space so completely that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. He smelled of smoke and rain and something metallic, like blood. He leaned down, bringing his masked face close to mine. I could see his eyes now. They were dark, almost black, and burning with a cold, terrifying intensity. "You are playing a game you do not understand, little girl," he whispered. "I am not a little girl. And I am not playing. I am surviving." His gaze flicked to my arm again, then back to my eyes. Something shifted in his expression. It was not pity. It was something darker. Recognition, maybe. "Run," he said. I blinked. "What?" "Run. Leave this party. Get in your car and drive until the gas runs out. Do not look back. Why would I do that? Because you are standing next to the devil. And if you stay, he is going to eat you alive." My breath hitched. He was trying to scare me. It was working. But beneath the fear there was a pull. A magnetic drag in my chest that wanted to lean into him, to see what was behind that mask. He was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen, and I wanted to touch him. I reached out, my hand hovering near the lapel of his jacket. I do not believe in devils. He caught my wrist. His grip was iron. His fingers were calloused and rough against my soft skin. He did not squeeze, but he held me there, suspended. His thumb brushed over the pulse point on my wrist, feeling the frantic rabbit kick of my heart. "Believe what you want," he murmured, "but you are not safe here, not with me." The door to the terrace burst open. Laughter spilled out, loud and bright, shattering the moment. A man walked out, holding a champagne flute, surrounded by the golden light of the ballroom. He was wearing a white mask and a white tuxedo jacket. He had the same build as the man in front of me, the same height, the same jawline, identical. He spotted us and grinned. It was a dazzling movie star grin that lit up the night. "Nero," he called out, his voice smooth and melodic, a sharp contrast to the gravel of the man holding my wrist. "Stop scaring the guests. You look like a gargoyle brooding in the corner." The man in black, Nero, dropped my wrist as if it burned him. He stepped back, the cold mask sliding back into place. The connection severed instantly, leaving me cold and reeling. The man in white walked over to us. He looked at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners behind his mask. "Well, hello. I do not think we have met. I am Leo Moretti, the face of the family, the charming prince, the one my father wanted me to impress." He extended a hand to me. I looked at it. Then I looked at Nero. He had retreated into the shadows again, lighting his cigarette with a quick flick of a lighter. The flame illuminated his face for a split second, showing me nothing but ice. He had told me to run. He had rejected me. Anger flared in my chest, hot, sudden, and reckless. He thought I was weak. He thought I needed to be warned off. I would show him. I turned my back on Nero and took Leo's hand. "I am Lyra," I said, forcing a smile that felt like a weapon. Leo beamed, a beautiful name for a beautiful girl. "Care to dance, Lyra? I would love to." I let Leo pull me toward the doors. He was warm, charming, and safe. He was everything I was supposed to want. But just before we crossed the threshold back into the suffocating noise of the party, I looked back. Nero was watching me. The smoke from his cigarette curled around his head like a halo of darkness. He did not move. He did not speak. He just watched. And even from this distance, I could feel the chill of his stare settling into my bones. I tightened my grip on Leo's hand and stepped into the light, leaving the devil in the dark.
Chapter 2. Nero. I watched them. From the edge of the ballroom, hidden in the shadow of a marble column, I watched my brother lead her onto the floor. The orchestra swelled, a waltz that was too cheerful for a room full of murderers and thieves. The crystal chandeliers overhead cast a fractured, glittering light over the crowd, but my eyes were locked on one thing: the red dress. It moved like a spill of fresh blood against the stark white of Leo's tuxedo jacket. He spun her around, his hand resting casually on the curve of her waist. That hand. My hand, in a way. We shared the same DNA, the same face, the same blood. But looking at his fingers splayed against the silk of her dress, I did not feel like his brother. I felt like Cain. I took a drag of my cigarette, even though smoking was forbidden in the ballroom. No one would stop me. I was Nero Moretti. I was the reason these people slept with one eye open. I was the monster under the bed, the shadow in the alley, the silence before the gunshot. Leo was the light. He was the prince of the city, the charmer, the face you trusted right before he took everything you owned. He was smiling down at her now, saying something that made the corner of her mouth lift. It was a tight, practiced smile, but it was a smile nonetheless. She was laughing at him. The sound carried over the music, bright and sharp. It grated against my nerves like a knife dragging across bone. She should not be laughing. She should be running. I had told her to run. I had given her an out, a chance to escape the shark tank before the water turned red. Instead, she had looked me in the eye, grabbed my brother, and jumped right in. It was spite. Pure, unadulterated spite. I respected it, and I hated it. I hated it because it worked. It got under my skin, itching and burning like a fever. I flicked ash onto the polished floor. A waiter passing by with a tray of empty glasses paused, looked at the ash, looked at me, and then wisely hurried away. I looked back at the couple on the floor. Leo pulled her closer. Too close. His hand slid lower, resting on the swell of her hip. My teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. The urge to walk out there, tear him away from her, and break his fingers one by one was a physical weight in my chest. It was a roar in my ears, drowning out the violins. This was why I stayed in the shadows. This was why I wore the black mask, even when the party was over. Because inside me, there was something broken, something volatile. My father had it. The madness, the rage that consumed logic and left only destruction in its wake. I had spent my entire life building a cage for that beast, reinforcing the bars with discipline and cold, hard silence. But looking at her, looking at Lyra, the bars felt like they were melting. She was not like the other women here. The mafia wives and mistresses were polished, hard, and empty. They knew the rules. They knew how to look away. Lyra looked right at you, on the terrace, when I had caught her wrist. Her pulse had hammered against my thumb like a trapped bird. But she had not pulled away. She had stepped closer. She had challenged me. And I had seen the bruise. She had covered it well. Layers of expensive concealer blended with a professional hand. But I noticed everything. It is my job to notice the things people try to hide. The twitch of a liar's eye, the sweat on a traitor's brow, the gun tucked into a waistband. I had seen the discoloration on her upper arm, the shape of a thumb. Someone had hurt her. Recently. The thought made the smoke turn sour in my mouth. It shouldn't matter to me. She was nothing, a debtor's daughter. Collateral damage in a world built on debt. Her father was a leech who would sell her for a lucky streak, and she was foolish enough to let him. But the anger flared anyway, hot and sudden, not at her, but for her. I wanted to know who did it. I wanted to find them. I wanted to make sure they never used that hand for anything ever again. I forced myself to look away, scanning the room instead. It was habit. Threat assessment. I cataloged the exits, the security teams, the rivals who were drinking our wine while plotting our downfall. The Irish mob was in the corner, looking uncomfortable in their suits. The Russians were by the bar, loud and already drunk. My father, the Don, was holding court near the orchestra, a king on his throne, oblivious to the rot at the foundation of his castle. And then my eyes drifted back, like a magnet, like gravity. Leo dipped her. It was a flashy, dramatic move, exactly the kind of thing he loved. Her hair cascaded down, a curtain of dark silk. Her neck was exposed, long, pale, vulnerable. I imagined my hand there, not to hurt, to claim, to feel the pulse I had felt on her wrist, to see if her skin was as soft as it looked. I crushed the cigarette out on the sole of my shoe. This was dangerous. She was dangerous. Not because she had power or weapons, but because she was chaos wrapped in silk. She was a match, and I was a room full of gasoline. Leo whispered something in her ear as he pulled her back up. Her eyes flashed. She looked over his shoulder. straight at me. The connection was instant, electric. It snapped across the room, ignoring the crowd, the noise, the distance. Her eyes were wide, dark, and defiant. She did not look away. She did not pretend she didn't see me. She stared right into the shadows, right at the monster. And she smiled. It wasn't the polite smile she gave Leo. It was a challenge. It was a weapon. It said, "I see you. You told me to run, and I stayed. What are you going to do about it?" I felt the heat rise up my neck, a flush of adrenaline and lust that had no place in my life. Leo spun her away, breaking the line of sight, but the damage was done. I needed a drink. I needed to leave. I needed to go down to the basement and hit the heavy bag until my knuckles bled, and this feeling was beaten out of me. But I stayed. I stayed because I could not leave her unprotected. Leo was careless. He was having fun. He didn't see the way the Russian underboss was eyeing her, licking his lips like a wolf looking at a lamb. He didn't see her father, hovering on the periphery, sweating through his cheap suit, looking desperate and weak. Leo saw a trophy. I saw a target. The song ended. The crowd applauded politely. Leo bowed, ever the showman, and kissed her hand. I saw her flinch. Just a fraction of an inch. A tiny recoil that she masked instantly. She didn't like it. She didn't want him touching her. Good. The thought was possessive and dark, a growl from the beast inside the cage. Leo led her off the floor, heading toward the bar. I moved, paralleling them from the shadows of the pillars. I moved silently, a ghost in a room full of noise. They reached the bar. Leo ordered champagne. He was preening, basking in the attention. People were coming up to them, congratulating him on the beautiful girl, sizing her up. She stood beside him, her back straight, her chin high. She was performing. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers gripped the stem of her glass until her knuckles turned white. She was terrified, and she was brave. I leaned against a wall 20 feet away, arms crossed over my chest. I just watched. A man approached them. Marco Vance, a low-level associate with a reputation for not taking no for an answer. He was drunk, swaying slightly. He reached out and touched Lyra's arm, the bare skin, right near the bruise. She stiffened. She stepped back, bumping into Leo. Leo laughed, clapping Marco on the shoulder. He didn't notice. He didn't see Marco's fingers linger. I pushed off the wall. I didn't run, I didn't shout, I just walked, a steady, predatory stalk. The crowd parted for me without me saying a word. They felt the temperature drop. They felt the violence radiating off me like heat off pavement. I stopped behind Marco. I didn't touch him. I just leaned in close to his ear. "Move your hand," I said. My voice was low, quiet. It didn't need to be loud. Marco froze. He turned slowly, his eyes widening when he saw the black mask, when he saw who was behind it. "Nero," he stammered. "I was just paying my respects. Move, your hand." He snatched his hand back as if he had touched a hot stove. He mumbled an apology, spilled half his drink on his shoes, and scrambled away into the crowd. Leo turned, blinking. "Whoa. Easy, brother." He was just being friendly. I looked at Leo. The mask hid my expression, but he knew me. He saw the tension in my jaw. "He wasn't," I said. Then I looked at her. She was staring at me. Her chest was heaving, the red dress rising and falling with rapid breaths. Her eyes were huge. She looked from Marco's retreating back to me. She knew. She knew I had intervened. She knew I had seen what Leo hadn't. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't acknowledge it. I couldn't. If I acknowledged it, it made it real. It made this connection real. I turned my cold stare to Leo. "Watch her," I said. Leo rolled his eyes. "I am watching her." "Relax, Nero. Have a drink. Live a little." He didn't get it. He never would. He lived in the light where things were safe and easy. He didn't understand that darkness was always waiting, always hungry. I looked at Lyra one last time. "Be careful, Lyra," I said. It was a warning. It was a threat. It was a plea. I turned and walked away before I did something stupid, like drag her out of there myself. I headed for the exit, needing the cold night air to clear the scent of her perfume from my lungs. It smelled like jasmine and trouble. As I walked out the heavy oak doors, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my lighter. I flicked it open, the flame dancing in the dark. I watched it burn for a moment, mesmerizing and destructive. She was wildfire, and if I wasn't careful, she was going to burn me down to ash.
Chapter 3. Lyra. 6 months is a long time to hold your breath. That is what my life felt like now. One long, suspended inhale. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was waiting for my father to gamble away the rest of our lives. I was waiting for Leo Moretti to get bored of his shiny new toy. But mostly I was waiting for Nero to look at me. I sat at the long mahogany table in the Moretti dining room. It was a room designed to intimidate. The walls were covered in dark wood paneling and oil paintings of dead men who looked like they would shoot you for sneezing. A crystal chandelier hung above us, casting a cold, fractured light on the silver cutlery and fine china. It was Sunday dinner. The most sacred ritual in an Italian family, even a criminal one. Leo sat to my right. He was currently ignoring me to text someone under the table, probably one of the hostesses at the Sapphire Club. I did not care. That was the beauty of our arrangement. We were perfect on paper. The handsome prince of the underworld and the jazz singer with the tragic backstory. The press ate it up. The rivals respected the alliance, or at least they respected the fact that Leo had secured collateral. That was what I was. Collateral. My father's debt had not disappeared. It had just been absorbed. Leo kept me around because it kept my father in line. As long as I was on Leo's arm, my father behaved. He did not run. He did not talk to the feds. And in exchange, the Morettis kept the loan sharks from breaking his legs. It was a transaction. A business deal wrapped in silk and sealed with a kiss on the cheek for the cameras. I took a sip of my wine. It was a Barolo, rich and heavy on my tongue. I hated it. I wanted whiskey. I wanted to be at the club, scrubbing tables or tuning the piano. I wanted to be anywhere but here, playing house with a family of sharks. Pass the salt, Lyra. I turned to Leo. He smiled at me, that easy, charming smile that fooled everyone but me. I passed him the salt cellar. It was heavy, solid silver. I briefly imagined bringing it down on his hand just to see if he would stop smiling. "Thank you, babe," he said, winking. I forced a smile back. "You are welcome, sweetheart." The endearments tasted like ash. Across the table, a fork scraped against a plate. The sound was harsh, deliberate. I did not look up. I knew who it was. Nero. He sat directly across from me. He had not spoken a word since we sat down. He rarely spoke to me at all. For 6 months, he had been a ghost in his own house. He walked into rooms and the temperature dropped. He walked out and the air returned. He was wearing a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the intricate ink that wrapped around his forearms. He looked tired. There were shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and violence. But he was beautiful. It was a cruel, sharp kind of beauty. The kind that made you want to touch it even though you knew it would cut you. I risked a glance. He was staring at his steak. He was cutting it with precise, surgical movements, He did not look at me. He never looked at me. Not when I arrived, not when I sat down, not when Leo put his hand on my thigh under the table, a possessive gesture that meant nothing to him, but everything to the man across from me. Or at least I hoped it meant something. I needed it to mean something. Because I was starving. I was starving for a reaction. For 6 months I had paraded around this house, wearing the dresses Leo bought me, laughing at his terrible jokes, playing the part of the happy girlfriend. And for 6 months Nero had treated me like furniture. He treated me like a mistake he had already forgotten. But I remembered. I remembered the heat of his hand on my wrist on the terrace. I remembered the way he had stalked Marco Vance at the party. I remembered the warning in his eyes. Run. I hadn't run. I stayed. And now I was rotting in this gilded cage, waiting for a monster to notice me. My father, the Don, cleared his throat at the head of the table. Lorenzo Moretti was a small man with eyes like shark glass. He terrified me more than Nero did. Nero felt like a storm. Lorenzo felt like a plague. "So, Leo," Lorenzo said, his voice raspy from years of cigars. "How are the numbers at the Venetian looking this quarter?" Leo perked up. He loved talking about money. "Fantastic, Papa. The new VIP lounge is bringing in the whales. We are up 30% from last year." Lorenzo nodded, pleased. "Good. And the new acquisition. The warehouse district." Leo faltered slightly. "We are working on it. The Irish are being stubborn." "Stubborn," Lorenzo repeated. The word cracked like a whip. "We do not tolerate stubbornness. Nero." I watched Nero's hand pause. He laid his knife and fork down on the edge of his plate. He lifted his head. His face was a blank mask. "It is handled," Nero said. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. "Handled how?" Nero picked up his wine glass. He took a slow sip, his eyes devoid of anything human. "They agreed to sell. The papers will be signed tomorrow morning." There was a silence around the table. A heavy, knowing silence. We all knew what handled meant. We all knew why the Irish had suddenly agreed to sell. Nero had paid them a visit. I shivered. I couldn't help it. The man was a killer. He was the enforcer. He did the things that gave nightmares to other monsters. And God help me, it only made the pull stronger. Leo laughed, breaking the tension. "See? I told you. We make a good team. I charm them, Nero scares them, it works." Nero's eyes flicked to Leo. For a second, just a split second, I saw it. The flash of pure, unadulterated loathing. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, buried under layers of ice. But I saw it. He hated this. He hated being the monster to Leo's prince. He looked back down at his plate. "Look at me," I thought. "Just look at me." He didn't. I felt a sudden spike of anger. It was hot and irrational. How dare he ignore me? How dare he sit there looking so broken and beautiful and pretend I didn't exist? I was the girl he had warned. I was the wildfire he was so afraid of. I decided to burn him. I turned to Leo. He was peeling a grape from the fruit bowl in the center of the table. "Leo," I purred. My voice was low, sultry. It was a voice I practiced in the mirror. He looked at me surprised. "Yeah, babe." I reached out and took the grape from his fingers. Our hands brushed. I made sure to linger. I made sure to lean in close so my hair fell over my shoulder and brushed against his arm. "You look tired," I said, pitching my voice so it would carry across the table. "Working too hard?" Leo preened. "Yeah, well, heavy wears the crown, right?" I laughed. It was a breathless, intimate sound. "You need to relax. Here." I held the grape up to his lips. It was a ridiculous gesture. It was theatrical and over the top. It was exactly the kind of thing a love-struck, vapid girlfriend would do. Leo grinned. He opened his mouth. I fed him the grape. My fingers brushed his lips. I kept my eyes on him, smiling like he was the only man in the world. "Yum," Leo said, chewing. "You are sweet, Lyra." I reached for another grape. "Maybe I should feed you the whole bunch. You need your strength." I plucked a second grape. I brought it to his mouth. This time I let my gaze slide. Just a little. Just across the table. Nero was watching. Finally. He was staring at my hand near his brother's mouth. His eyes were not cold anymore. They were infernos. They were black pits of rage. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle feathering beneath the skin. His hand was wrapped around the stem of his wine glass. His knuckles were white. Gotcha. The thrill of it shot through me like a drug. He cared. He hated it. He hated seeing me touch Leo. I didn't stop. I pushed it. I leaned closer to Leo, practically draping myself over him. I whispered something meaningless in his ear just to make it look like we shared a secret. Leo laughed. I brought the grape to Leo's lips again. "Open up," I teased. Nero's gaze snapped from my hand to my face. We locked eyes. I saw the warning. I saw the storm gathering behind the darkness. "Stop it," his eyes said. "Stop playing games you cannot win." I smiled at him, a small, challenging quirk of my lips. "No," I touched the grape to Leo's bottom lip. Snap. The sound was sharp and loud, like a gunshot in a library. I jumped. Leo flinched. Across the table, wine was spreading across the white tablecloth. A dark, crimson stain that grew rapidly, soaking into the fabric. Nero was holding the base of his wine glass. The stem had shattered in his grip. Shards of crystal lay on the table, glittering in the pool of red. Blood mixed with the wine. He had cut himself. A thin line of red dripped from his palm, merging with the spill. The table went dead silent. Even Lorenzo stopped, eating. Nero stared at his hand. He looked at the blood as if he was surprised to see it there, as if he had forgotten he was made of flesh and bone. Leo stared at the mess. "Jesus, Nero! What is wrong with you? You ruined the tablecloth. Mama is going to kill you." Nero did not answer. He did not look at Leo. He did not look at his father. He looked at me. The air left the room. The gravity shifted, tilting the world on its axis until I was sliding toward him. His eyes were terrifying. There was no ice left. It was all fire. It was a raw, naked hunger that terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. He knew what I did. He knew I had done it on purpose. And he wanted to strangle me for it. Or kiss me. The line between the two felt very, very thin. Nero stood up. The chair scraped harshly against the floor. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was a low growl. It vibrated in my chest. He grabbed a napkin and wrapped it around his bleeding hand. The white linen turned red instantly. He walked out of the room without another word. I watched him go. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. My skin felt hot, flushed with adrenaline. Lorenzo sighed and signaled a waiter to clean the mess. That boy. He has his father's temper. Leo shook his head, reaching for his own wine. He is a freak. Always has been. Do not worry about him, Lyra. I looked at the empty chair across from me. I looked at the stain on the tablecloth, marking the spot where he had lost control. I wasn't worried. I was exhilarated. I had cracked the ice. I had reached into the dark and pulled a reaction out of the monster. I took a sip of my wine to hide the trembling of my hands. It didn't taste like ash anymore. It tasted like victory.
Chapter 4. Nero. My hand throbbed. I had wrapped it in a linen napkin and secured it with duct tape I found in the back office of the club. It was crude. It was ugly. It was effective. The white linen was already spotted with red, but the bleeding had stopped. I sat in a booth at the back of the Sapphire Club. It was Leo's territory. It was loud, flashy, and expensive, Everything I hated. We were supposed to be closing a deal with the Irish. O'Malley sat across from me, sweating through his gray suit. He looked nervous. He should be. I had just stared at him in silence for 10 minutes while Leo charmed the man's associates with free drinks and loud stories. Leo stood up. He adjusted his silk tie in the reflection of the window. "I will be right back," Leo announced to the table. "I need to freshen up before we sign." He flashed a grin at the Irishman and sauntered toward the restrooms. He left his phone on the table. It was face up. It was unprotected. It was the height of stupidity. We were sitting with criminals who would sell their own mothers for leverage, and my brother left his digital life exposed like a raw nerve. I glared at the device. I wanted to smash it. I wanted to teach him a lesson about operational security. Then the screen lit up. It vibrated against the mahogany table. A single message notification. Lyra. The name hit me harder than the whiskey I was nursing. I should have looked away. I should have ignored it. It was none of my business. She was his girlfriend. She was the girl who fed him grapes and laughed at his jokes. She was the girl who looked at me with fire in her eyes and dared me to break. I looked at the message preview. "The contractors for the jazz club are here. They found a leak in the main line. They say it is going to cost another 50 grand, or they walk off the job." I do not have that kind of money, Leo. I do not know what to do. My jaw tightened. They were squeezing her. I knew the contractors she was using, the Russo brothers. They were bottom feeders. They smelled desperation and lack of experience, and they feasted on it. They knew her father was a gambler. They knew she was trying to build something legitimate on a foundation of sand. So they were inventing problems to bleed her dry. Leo would not see this for hours. When he came back from the bathroom, he would be too busy buying rounds of shots to check his phone. And when he finally did see it, he would just transfer the money. He would throw cash at the problem because that was how Leo fixed things. But that would not help her. That would just teach the Russos that she was an easy mark. They would find another leak next week, and another the week after. They would bleed her until she had nothing left. She did not need money. She needed a weapon. I looked at the bathroom door. Leo was still gone. I looked at O'Malley. He was busy staring at a waitress. I reached out and took the phone. The screen was locked. It did not matter. I handled the family's security. I set up the encryption on every device we owned. I knew Leo's passcode because I was the one who forced him to change it from his birthday. I punched in the code. The phone unlocked. I opened the message. Her fear was palpable in the text. I could imagine her standing in the dust and debris of her dream, surrounded by men who wanted to take advantage of her. Men who thought she was weak because she was beautiful. Rage curled in my gut, cold and sharp. I started typing. "Do not pay them." I paused. That sounded too much like me. I needed to sound like him, or at least enough like him to pass. "Do not give them a cent," I typed. "Tell them to look at Article 4, Section 2 of their contract. The clause about existing structural defects. It states that any pre-existing damage found during renovation is covered under the initial quote. Tell them if they walk off the job they are in breach of contract, and you will sue them for the delay." I hit send. I stared at the screen, waiting. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was a line, a big one. I was impersonating my brother. I was stepping into his life. The response came 30 seconds later. "Leo, since when do you know about construction law or contracts?" She was sharp. She knew Leo. She knew he did not read contracts. He signed them with a flourish and let the lawyers handle the details. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the glass screen. I could lie. I could make a joke. I could say I asked a lawyer. But I wanted her to know. Not explicitly, but I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to feel the weight of someone actually looking out for her. Since I decided not to let people walk all over you, I typed. I watched the 3 little dots bubble on the screen. She was typing, then stopping, then typing again. Okay, she replied. I will tell them, thank you. It was not enough. The Russos were bullies. They might fold today, but they would try again. And Leo's phone was not safe. He left it on tables. He let girls look through his photos. If I kept helping her through this device, someone would see. Leo would see. I needed a secure line. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out my burner phone. It was a black, nondescript slab of plastic and glass. Untraceable. Encrypted. I used it for cleanup jobs. I used it when things went wrong. I used it for secrets. I typed a message on Leo's phone. This line is not secure. I wrote. I have a private number for business. Use that one from now on. The reception is better. I typed in the number of my burner. Text me there, I added. Right now. I hit send. Then I deleted the thread from Leo's phone. I set his phone back on the table exactly where he had left it. I sat back in the booth and waited. My injured hand throbbed in time with my pulse. What was I doing? This was madness. This was asking for trouble. I was the enforcer. I did not play games. I did not pretend to be other people. But I remembered the way she looked at me across the dinner table, the way she fed him that grape, the way she challenged me. She was drowning, and Leo was handing her an anchor made of gold. I was the only one who could teach her how to swim. My jacket pocket buzzed, a single, short vibration against my ribs. I did not reach for it immediately. I let it sit there. I let the feeling wash over me. It was a connection, a secret tether between us that no one else knew about. Not Leo, not my father, just us. I pulled the burner out. Hey, the message read. It's Lyra. Did I do this right? I stared at the name. I didn't save her as a contact. It was too risky, but I knew who it was. Yes, I typed back. You did good. I told them, she replied. You should have seen their faces. They backed down immediately. They are getting back to work. You saved me, Leo. The name stung. Leo. She thought she was thanking him. She thought he was the hero. I should correct her. I should tell her who I was. But if I did, she would stop texting. She would run. She would go back to fearing me. Back to looking at me like I was a monster. I wanted her to look at me like I was a savior, even if I had to wear my brother's face to get it. I will always save you, I typed. It was a lie, and it was the truest thing I had ever said. Leo came back from the bathroom. He looked fresh, his hair perfectly coiffed, his smile bright and vacuous. He sat down and clapped his hands. All right, where were we? He picked up his phone. He checked the screen. He saw nothing. No messages. No history. He put it back down. I slid my burner phone back into my pocket. It felt heavy. It felt like a grenade. So, Nero, Leo said, pouring himself a drink. You okay over there? You have not said a word. I am fine, I said. My voice was steady. My face was calm. But inside, the wildfire was spreading. I took a sip of my whiskey. It burned going down. I had her now. She was in my pocket. She was on my line, and I was never going to let her go.
Chapter 5. Lyra. I was dating two men. Technically, they were the same man. Physically, they were the same man. But in my head and in my heart, they were two completely different species. There was Day Leo. Day Leo was sitting across from me at a trendy bistro in Manhattan. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He was charming the waitress with a smile that could melt glaciers. He ordered a bottle of wine without asking me what I wanted and spent the first 20 minutes of our date talking about his hairstylist. I love the guy, but he keeps trying to push this matte pomade on me, Leo said, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed locks. I told him, Marco, I need shine. I am under lights all day. Matte makes me look dead. Do you think I look dead, Lyra? I stabbed a piece of lettuce with my fork. You look very alive, Leo. Day Leo was exhausting. He was a golden retriever with a credit card and a gun license. He was fun in small doses, but entirely lacking in substance. He forgot my favorite color. He forgot that I was allergic to shellfish until I reminded him as he tried to order the lobster risotto. He forgot that we had dinner plans until I called him 10 minutes after he was supposed to pick me up. Then there was Night Leo. Night Leo lived in my phone. He existed in the black glass rectangle that I kept under my pillow like a talisman. Night Leo did not care about hair products or gossip. Night Leo was sharp. He was attentive. He was dark and intense, and he listened to me in a way that made my skin prickle. It had been weeks since the incident with the contractors. Since then, the text thread on my phone had become my lifeline. My pocket vibrated. I felt the phantom buzz against my thigh and my heart rate spiked. It was a Pavlovian response. I glanced at Leo. He was busy taking a photo of his steak for social media. I slid my phone out of my purse under the table. Did the liquor license board get back to you? It was him. Night Leo. I typed back quickly, my thumb flying over the screen. Not yet. They are stalling. They say there is an issue with the zoning. 3 dots appeared instantly. He was typing. He was always there. It felt like he was waiting for me. Send me the name of the clerk you spoke to. I will handle it. You will have your permit by morning. I bit my lip to hide my smile. It was efficient. It was ruthless. It was exactly what I needed. Day Leo put his phone down and looked at me. Who are you texting? You are smiling like you just won the lottery. I slipped the phone back into my bag. Just my dad. He is having a good day. Leo nodded, losing interest immediately. That is good. Hey, remind me to take you shopping this weekend. There is a charity gala on Saturday and my father wants us to make a splash. I need you in something blue. It matches my eyes. I stared at him. He wanted me to match him like an accessory, like a tie or a pocket square. I can do blue, I said. Great. Now finish your salad. We have to stop by the club. I need to yell at the DJ. We spent the rest of the night at the Sapphire Club. I sat in the VIP booth, sipping a vodka tonic that I nursed for 3 hours while Leo worked the room. He was in his element. He shook hands, slapped backs, and flirted with anything that had a pulse. I felt invisible. I watched him and tried to reconcile the man, who was currently doing a shot off a waitress's tray, with the man who texted me last night asking about my favorite jazz standard. Strange fruit, I had told him, because it is haunting and real. It is heavy, he had replied, like you. It was the most intimate thing anyone had ever said to me. And looking at Leo now, laughing loud and vacuous, I could not believe he was the one who typed it. But he had to be. It was his number. It was his secret line. Maybe he was just a good actor. Maybe he hid his depth behind this mask of superficiality because it was safer. Or maybe I was just projecting what I wanted onto him. Leo dropped me off at my parents' house at 2 a.m. He kissed me on the cheek, his lips tasting of expensive gin, and promised to call me. He wouldn't. I walked up the driveway of my childhood home. The house was dark. It loomed over me, a 2-story colonial that looked perfect from the street, but rotted from the inside out. I unlocked the front door quietly. I knew the drill. Do not wake them. I tiptoed past the living room. My father was passed out in his armchair, a bottle of scotch on the floor beside him. The TV was on, playing an infomercial on mute. The blue light washed over his face, making him look gray and old. I crept up the stairs, avoiding the 3rd step because it creaked. My mother's door was closed. I could feel her presence behind it, a cold pressure in the air. I hurried to my room and locked the door behind me. It was only when the lock clicked that my shoulders dropped. I stripped off the dress Leo had bought me. It was too tight and too flashy. I pulled on an oversized t-shirt and climbed into bed. The sheets were cold. The room was silent. I reached for my phone. "I am home," I typed. I didn't know why I sent it. He hadn't asked, but I needed to tell someone. I needed to know that someone knew where I was. The reply came in seconds. "Good, lock your door." I shivered. It was a command, not a question. "I always do," I typed back. "How was the night?" I rolled onto my back, holding the phone above my face. The screen was the only light in the room. "Exhausting. You act so different in person. Sometimes I feel like I am dating 2 different men." I held my breath. It was a risk. I was calling him out. The dots bubbled for a long time. Then they stopped. Then they started again. "In person, I have to be what they expect," he wrote. "Here I can be what I am." My heart squeezed. It made sense. In this life, in this world, everyone wore a mask. I wore one every day. Why shouldn't he? "And what are you?" I asked. "Yours." The word sat there on the screen, heavy and terrifying. Yours. It wasn't a pickup line. It wasn't a joke. It felt like a vow. I squeezed my eyes shut. This was dangerous. I was falling for him. Not the Leo who preened in front of mirrors, but this voice in the dark. This shadow who solved my problems and asked about my music. "You should not say things like that," I typed, my fingers trembling. "Why not?" "Because I am just the debtor's daughter. I am collateral. You know why I am here. You know this is all a game." It stopped being a game a long time ago. I turned onto my side, curling into a ball. The house felt oppressive. I could feel the weight of my parents' failures pressing down on me through the floorboards. My father's addiction. My mother's cruelty. They were chains, anchoring me to this life, to this house, to this debt. "I hate it here," I confessed. I had never told anyone that, not even my friends. "I hate this house. I hate going home. It feels like a cage. I have to walk on eggshells. I have to make myself small so I do not get hurt." I waited. I expected him to tell me to toughen up. That was the Mafia way. Suck it up. Deal with it. His reply came a minute later. "You burn too bright to ever be caged, Lyra." Tears pricked my eyes, hot and sudden. He saw me. He really saw me. "I do not feel bright," I typed. "I feel like I am flickering out. I will not let you go out." I stared at the words until they blurred. He was so protective, so intense. It reminded me of someone else. The thought crept in, unbidden and unwanted. Nero. The brother who sat across from me at dinner with murder in his eyes. The brother who had saved me from Marco Vance. The brother who had wrapped his hand in a napkin and walked away bleeding because I had pushed him too far. I felt a pang of guilt, a sharp twisting knife in my gut. I was falling for Leo. Knight Leo. But the pull, the gravity, it had started with Nero. I needed to be honest. If we were doing this, if we were stripping away the masks in the dark, I needed to confess my sins. "Can I tell you a secret?" I typed. "Anything. When I first met you, at the masquerade, I didn't want you." The dots appeared instantly. "I know." "No, you don't. I mean, I wanted him. Nero." I squeezed the phone tight. I had said it. I had put it out into the universe. He was the one I saw first. He was the one who made my heart race. He looked so lonely and so dangerous, and I wanted him to look at me. I only went to you because he rejected me. I wanted to make him jealous. I wanted to hurt him because he wouldn't let me in. I waited for the anger. I waited for Leo's ego to flare up. I waited for him to call me a bitch or a tease. The silence stretched. 1 minute, 2. I started to panic. I had gone too far. I had ruined it. Then the phone buzzed. He is a fool. I frowned. That was it. He is a fool, the message continued. He pushes people away because he thinks he is poison. He thinks he is broken. He does not know what he lost. My chest ached. It sounded so sad, so resigned. Do you think he hates me? I asked. I think he is terrified of you. Why? Because you are the fire that could melt him down to nothing. I read the message 3 times. It was poetic. It was tragic. It didn't sound like Leo. It didn't sound like the man who worried about matte pomade. But people were layers. Maybe Leo had a soul beneath the shine. Maybe he understood his brother better than anyone. I don't want to melt him anymore, I typed. I want you, the you that talks to me like this. Good, he replied. Stay with me. Forget him. He is not the man for you. He would only destroy you. And you won't? I would burn the world down before I let a single spark touch you. I lowered the phone to my chest. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was in trouble. Deep, deep trouble. I was in love with a voice in a machine. I was in love with the idea of a man. Downstairs, I heard glass shatter. My father had dropped the bottle. Or thrown it. I flinched, hurling tighter into myself. The cage was real. The debt was real. The bruise on my arm was real. But the phone in my hand was warm. Good night, Leo, I typed. Sleep, little wildfire, he wrote back. I am watching over you. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I didn't know I was texting the monster. I didn't know I was inviting the wolf into my bed. I just knew that I didn't want to be alone in the dark anymore.
Chapter 6. Nero. She wanted me. The words burned on the screen of the burner phone. They burned into my retinas. They burned into my brain. I wanted him, Nero. I sat in the dark of my office at the warehouse, the glow of the phone the only light in the room. I had read that message 100 times in the last 12 hours. I had analyzed it like intel from a rival family. I had dissected every letter, every space, looking for a lie. I found none. She had wanted me. The monster. The shadow. The man who had told her to run. She had gone to Leo not because she preferred the light, but because I had shut the door in her face. I ran my thumb over the screen, tracing her name. It was a dangerous addiction. Every time the phone buzzed against my ribs, my heart skipped a beat. It was pathetic. I was the enforcer of the Moretti crime family, a man who broke fingers without blinking, and I was reduced to a love-struck teenager waiting for a text message. But it was the only place where I could be soft. It was the only place where I could protect her without terrifying her. In the texts, I was her savior. In the texts, I was the man she deserved. But in reality, I was still the nightmare. And she was falling in love with a ghost. She was falling for a version of Leo that didn't exist. She was pouring her heart out to a phantom, thinking she was safe, thinking she was finally seen. Guilt tasted like bile in my throat. I was manipulating her. I was catfishing her. It was dishonorable. It was cruel. But I couldn't stop. Because every time she typed, "I feel safe with you," the ice around my heart cracked a little more. The door to my office banged open. I slid the burner phone into my desk drawer in a fluid motion, my face settling into its usual mask of indifference. Leo walked in. He looked like $1 million and smelled like expensive gin and bad decisions. He was wearing a tuxedo, the bow tie undone and hanging loose around his neck. "Rise and shine, brother," Leo announced, dropping onto the leather sofa. "Big night tonight, the grand opening of the Royal Flush. We need to look sharp." I stared at him. I hated him. It was a new feeling. I had always tolerated Leo. I had protected him. I had cleaned up his messes and resented his freedom, but I had never truly hated him. Now, looking at his careless grin, I wanted to put my fist through his teeth. "Get your feet off the table," I said. Leo laughed. He kicked his feet up higher, resting his patent leather shoes on my mahogany desk. "You are so uptight, Nero. You need to get laid. Seriously. When was the last time you touched a woman who wasn't screaming for mercy because you were interrogating her husband?" I didn't answer. I picked up a file and pretended to read it. Leo sighed. He pulled out his own phone, the one I had compromised, and scrolled through it. "So," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "I have a situation." I didn't look up. "Handle it. It is a good situation. You know that new hostess at the Sapphire? The blonde with the legs that go on for days? Tiffany. Or maybe Brittany. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she is flexible, very flexible." My grip on the file tightened. I knew where this was going. And, Leo said, grinning, "she is going to be at the opening tonight. She wants a private tour of the penthouse suites, if you know what I mean." I looked up then. I looked him dead in the eye. "You have a girlfriend, Leo." Leo waved a hand dismissively. "Lyra? Please, that is just business. You know that. Dad wanted the debt secured. I secured it. She is a prop, Nero. A very pretty prop, I will give you that. She looks great in photos. But she is heavy. Heavy." The word echoed the text I had sent her. "It is heavy. Like you." To me, her heaviness was gravity. It was substance. It was the weight of a soul that had survived the fire. To Leo, it was just a burden. "She talks about feelings too much," Leo complained. "She looks at me with those big, sad eyes like she wants me to fix her life. It is exhausting. I want fun. I want easy." Tiffany is easy. The rage was a physical thing. It started in my gut, hot and molten, and rushed up to my chest. It took everything I had not to reach across the desk and strangle him. He was cheating on her. He was going to humiliate her in front of the entire city. He was going to leave her alone at another party while he fucked some random girl in a penthouse. And Lyra would be standing there in her beautiful dress, wondering why she wasn't enough. She thought he was the hero. She thought he was the one texting her goodnight and telling her she burned bright. She had no idea she was sleeping next to a hollow shell. "You are a fool," I said. My voice was low, deadly quiet. Leo frowned. "Excuse me? You have a diamond and you are chasing rhinestones." Leo laughed, standing up. "You are a poet now? Look, don't lecture me on relationships. You scare women away before you even say hello. Stick to breaking legs, brother. Leave the romance to the experts." He checked his watch. "I have to go. Need to get a haircut before the opening. Make sure Lyra gets there on time, will you? I don't want to wait for her." He walked out, whistling. I sat there in the silence. The rage was vibrating under my skin, demanding release. He didn't deserve her. He didn't deserve to say her name. I opened the drawer and took out the burner phone. I stared at the blank screen. I could text her. I could warn her. I could tell her, Leo is going to hurt you tonight. But I couldn't, because Leo wouldn't say that. The character I was playing wouldn't rat on himself. If I warned her, the game was over. I shoved the phone into my pocket and stood up. I straightened my jacket. I checked the gun in my shoulder holster. I was done playing games. The royal flush was loud. It was the newest jewel in the Moretti crown, a massive casino and hotel complex on the waterfront. The grand opening was a spectacle of excess. Aerialists hung from the ceiling pouring champagne. A tiger was in a cage by the entrance. The entire city's elite, politicians, celebrities, mobsters, were packed into the main hall, drinking our liquor and kissing our rings. I hated it. I stood on the mezzanine level watching the floor. It was my job, security, surveillance, control. But I wasn't watching the exits. I was watching her. Lyra, she was wearing gold tonight, a dress that looked like liquid metal, pouring over her curves and pooling at her feet. It was backless, dipping dangerously low, exposing the smooth expanse of her skin. Her hair was swept up, her neck long and elegant. She looked like a queen, and she looked miserable. She was standing near the roulette tables, holding a glass of champagne she hadn't touched. Her eyes were scanning the room, searching. She was looking for Leo. Leo, who was currently in the VIP elevator with the blonde hostess, laughing as the doors slid shut. I had seen them go. I hadn't stopped them. Let him go. Let him dig his own grave. I watched a man approach Lyra. He was older, greasy, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He leaned in too close. He said something that made her stiffen. She smiled, but it was the fake smile. The shield. She took a step back. He took a step forward. My hands curled into fists on the railing. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't watch from the shadows while she was fed to the wolves. I couldn't watch her pine for a man who didn't exist while the real man stood 10 feet above her, burning alive. She wanted me. She had said it. I wanted him. Nero. Why was I letting her settle for the imitation? Because I was dangerous. Because I was broken. Fuck that. I turned and walked toward the stairs. I moved with purpose. I moved with the inevitability of a landslide. I reached the casino floor. The crowd parted for me. They always did. They saw the scowl, the size of me, the darkness that clung to my suit like smoke. I walked straight to her. The greasy man was reaching for her arm. I didn't slow down. I just stepped between them. I used my shoulder to check him, a hard, solid impact that sent him stumbling back into a waiter. Drinks crashed to the floor. The man spluttered. "Hey, watch where you are." He looked up. He saw my face. The color drained from his cheeks. "Mr. Moretti, I didn't see you." "Leave," I said. He left. He practically ran. I turned to Lyra. She was staring at me. Her eyes were wide, reflecting the gold lights of the casino. Her lips were parted in a small O of surprise. She looked beautiful. She looked terrified. "Nero," she breathed. "What are you doing?" I asked. My voice was harsher than I intended. I am waiting for Leo. Have you seen him?" I looked down at her. I saw the hope in her eyes, the trust. She thought Leo was just busy. She thought he was working. She had no idea he was upstairs betraying her. "He is not coming," I said. Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "He said to meet him here. He is busy." "Doing what?" I took a step closer. I invaded her space. I needed her to feel me. I needed to break through the delusion she had built around my brother. "Does it matter?" "He isn't here. You are standing alone in a room full of sharks, looking like bait. She flinched. Why are you so mean? I am not mean. I am honest. There is a difference. She lifted her chin. The fire was there, sparking in the gray of her eyes. I don't need you to babysit me, Nero. I can handle myself. Can you? I challenged. Because 5 seconds ago you looked like you were about to be eaten. I handled Marco Vance, didn't I? You didn't handle him. I did. She glared at me. Why do you care? You told me to run. You told me to stay away from you. So why are you always here? Why are you always watching me? Because I can't look away. Because you are the only thing in this room in color. I didn't say that. Instead, I grabbed her arm, not gently. I wrapped my fingers around her bicep, feeling the warmth of her skin through the gold fabric. Come with me. What? No. I have to wait for... He is not coming, Lyra. I snapped. The control I had held onto for so long fractured. She froze. She stared at me, shocked by the outburst. I pulled her. I didn't give her a choice. I dragged her away from the roulette tables, away from the noise and the lights. I led her toward the service corridor, the employees-only section where the music was muffled and the lights were dim. She stumbled in her heels, but she followed. She didn't fight me. Maybe she sensed the mood I was in. Maybe she was curious. I pushed open the door to a quiet hallway lined with linen closets and offices. The door swung shut behind us, cutting off the roar of the party. Silence. I spun her around and pinned her against the wall. I didn't touch her with my body, but I caged her in. My hands slammed against the wall on either side of her head. I leaned down, bringing my face inches from hers. She gasped. Her chest heaved, brushing against my lapels. Her scent filled my nose. Jasmine and vanilla and fear. What are you doing? She whispered. Her voice trembled, but not just with fear. There was something else there. Anticipation. I stared down at her. I looked at the pulse fluttering in her throat. I looked at her mouth, painted a deep, inviting red. Tell me the truth, I rasped. What truth? About you and Leo? She blinked. I don't know what you are talking about. We are... Stop it, I growled. Stop lying to me. I see you, Lyra. I watch you. I know you watch me, she shot back, her voice gaining strength. You glare at me across the dinner table like you want to kill me. Maybe I do. Or maybe I want to do something else. Her breath hitched. What? I leaned closer. My nose brushed hers. I know you are faking it, I said softly. I know you don't love him. She stiffened. Of course I love him. He is my boyfriend. He is a clown, I cut in. He is a child. And you? You are fire. You don't look at him the way a woman looks at the man she loves. And how do I look at him? You look at him like he is a shield, like he is a safe place to hide. She swallowed hard. Is that a crime? It is when you are hiding from me. The confession hung in the air between us, heavy and electric. She stared at me, her lips parted. You think I am hiding from you? I think you used him, I said, my voice dropping to a rough whisper. I think you walked out onto that terrace, saw me, got scared, and grabbed the first lifeline you could find. I think you are with him because he is the safe version of a Moretti. He has the face, but he doesn't have the teeth. She shook her head, but it was weak. You are crazy. Am I? Then tell me I am wrong. Tell me you look at him and feel your heart race. Tell me you dream about him. Tell me, I roared, slamming my hand against the wall again. She flinched, tears pricking her eyes. Why are you doing this? Why are you torturing me? Because I am tired, I yelled. I am tired of watching you play house with a man who doesn't even know your favorite song. I am tired of watching you dim your light so you don't blind him. She froze. How do you know that? I froze too. Strange fruit. I had asked her. On the text. Night Leo knew, Nero shouldn't. I scrambled for a cover, I guessed. It is obvious. You are miserable, Lyra. Everyone can see it except him. She slumped against the wall, the fight draining out of her. You are right, she whispered. The admission hit me in the chest. I am using him, she confessed, tears spilling over. My father. He owes money. Leo is my protection. If I leave him, my father dies. I am just trying to survive, Nero. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. I am not in love with him. I never was. Victory roared through my blood. It was savage and dark. She didn't love him. She was mine. She had always been mine. But then she continued. But he is good to me. He listens. He texts me at night and he understands me. The real me. Not the doll I pretend to be. My heart stopped. She was talking about me. She was in love with the man who texted her. She was in love with the ghost in the machine. He is the only thing keeping me sane, she said, a soft smile touching her lips. He really sees me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her I am him. I am the one who sees you. But I couldn't. Not here. Not like this. If I told her now, she would hate me. She would see the deception. She would see the manipulation. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I became the villain. So you admit it, I said, my voice cold as ice. You are a gold digger. You are using my brother to pay off a debt. Her face fell. The softness vanished, replaced by hurt and then anger. That is not what I said. It is what I heard. You are a fraud, Lyra. A pretty little liar. She shoved my chest. Screw you, Nero. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know you are dangerous, and I know I need to get you away from him before you ruin him. She laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. Ruin him? I am the best thing that ever happened to him. I grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at me. My thumb pressed into her soft skin. You are poison, I whispered, and I am the antidote. She stared at me, her breath mingling with mine. Her pupils were blown wide. The tension was unbearable. I wanted to kiss her. I wanted to crush her mouth against mine and taste the lie on her tongue. And she wanted it too. I could feel it. She was leaning in, her body betraying her mind. Tell me to stop, I commanded. She didn't. She parted her lips, Nero. My name on her lips was a prayer and a curse. I leaned in. I was going to do it. Consequences be damned. I was going to take her right here in the hallway. My pocket buzzed. The burner phone. I froze. I pulled back just an inch. She blinked, coming out of the trance. She looked confused, flushed. I stepped back, releasing her. The cold air rushed between us. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the phone. Message from Lyra. Where are you? I am scared. Nero is here and he is looking at me like he wants to kill me. I stared at the screen. She had texted me. She had texted Leo for help, while I was standing right in front of her. She trusted the lie more than the reality. I looked at her. She was holding her phone, clutching it like a weapon. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. Go find him, I said, my voice flat. Go find your boyfriend. She looked at me, hurt flashing in her eyes. Then she steeled herself. She smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, and walked past me. She didn't look back. I stood in the empty hallway, listening to the click of her heels fading away. I was a coward. I was a liar. And I was in so deep I couldn't see the surface anymore. I pulled out the burner phone. I am coming, I typed. Do not be scared. I won't let him touch you. I hit send. I was saving her from myself, and I was damning us both.
Chapter 7. Lyra. I ran. I didn't look back at the hallway where I had left Nero. I didn't look at the shadows that seemed to stretch out like claws trying to drag me back. I clutched my phone in my hand like it was a holy relic. I am coming. Do not be scared. I won't let him touch you. Leo. My Leo. The one who lived in the dark and spoke in poetry. He was coming. I burst out onto the main casino floor. The noise hit me like a physical wall. Laughter, the chiming of slot machines, the clink of glass. It was a chaotic, glittering hellscape, and I scanned every face, looking for him. I needed him to be real. I needed the man who sent that text to step out of the crowd and put his arm around me. I needed him to prove Nero wrong. You look at him like he is a shield. Nero's voice echoed in my head, rough and accusing. He was wrong. Leo wasn't just a shield. He was safe. I pushed past a group of women in sequined dresses. I ignored the catcalls from a table of high rollers. I made my way to the VIP elevator. If Leo was coming to save me, he would be coming from the penthouse. The elevator doors slid open. My heart leaped. But it wasn't Leo who stepped out. It was a couple, drunk and stumbling, giggling as they practically fell over each other. I stepped back, deflated. Where was he? I looked at my phone. No new messages. I typed out a frantic reply. Where are you? I am by the roulette tables. Please hurry. It failed to send. I frowned, tapping the screen. No service? In a billion-dollar casino? That was impossible. I tried again. The red exclamation mark mocked me. Panic, cold and sharp, started to prickle at the base of my spine. I needed to find Day Leo. If I couldn't reach Night Leo, I had to find the physical version. I had to tell him that his brother was cornering me, threatening me with truths I didn't want to admit. I turned and headed for the bar. He had to be there. He wasn't. I checked the lounge, the terrace, the private poker rooms. Nothing. It was like he had vanished. Or like he didn't want to be found. And then I saw him. He was near the exit, but he wasn't looking for me. He was with the blonde hostess, the one Nero had mentioned, Tiffany, or Brittany. They were standing close, too close. Her hand was on his chest, her fingers toying with his lapel. He was leaning down, whispering something in her ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who knew she had won. Leo checked his watch, then looked toward the elevators. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the exit. He was leaving. With her. He hadn't come to save me. He hadn't even looked for me. The text on my phone felt like a lie. I am coming. He wasn't coming. He was leaving. I stood there, frozen in my gold dress, watching my safety net walk out the door with another woman. Nero was right. He was always right. I was a fool. I was playing house with a child while the wolves circled, and then the wolf was there. I didn't hear him approach. I felt him. The air around me grew heavy, charged with static. The hairs on my arms stood up. The scent of smoke and rain washed over me, drowning out the expensive perfume of the crowd. I turned slowly. Nero was standing right behind me. He wasn't wearing his mask of indifference anymore. His face was hard, his eyes burning with a dark, terrifying intelligence. He looked at the door where Leo had just exited. Then he looked at me. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't have to. I tried to step back, but I bumped into a high-top table. There was nowhere to go. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. My voice shook. He took a step closer. He was so big. He blocked out the light, the room, the people. It was just him. "I told you to run, Lyra. I couldn't. I have to stay." For him? He jerked his chin toward the door. For the man who just left you here to rot? For my father. Nero laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a sharp, jagged bark that made me flinch. Your father, he repeated. The man who sold you. He didn't sell me. He loves me, does he? Nero tilted his head. Does he love you enough to stop gambling? Does he love you enough to protect you from the sharks? Or does he only love you when you are useful? Stop it. I tried to push past him, but he moved with that unnatural speed, blocking my path. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. His presence was a cage. We need to talk, he said. I have nothing to say to you, but I have things to say to you. About your future, or lack of one. He gestured toward a door marked private. It wasn't a request. I looked around. No one was paying attention. The music was too loud. The drinks were flowing too freely. If I screamed, they would just think I was having a good time. I walked to the door. Nero opened it and followed me inside. It was an office. Plush carpet, heavy desk, soundproofed walls. The silence was deafening. Nero leaned against the door, crossing his arms. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he had already solved. Drop the act, Lyra, he said softly. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold my shattering composure together. I don't know what you mean. I know about the fake relationship. I know you and Leo aren't sleeping together. I know you are just a prop to him, and he is just a shield to you. So what? I snapped, finding a spark of anger in the fear. So what if it's fake? It works. It keeps my father safe. It keeps the debt collectors away. Leo doesn't care. He thinks it's funny. Leo is an idiot, Nero said. He doesn't care about anything that doesn't reflect in a mirror. But I care. Why? Why do you care? Because I handle the debts. He walked over to the desk and picked up a piece of paper. He didn't look at it. He looked at me. Your father owes the Irish mob $200,000. I gasped. That's impossible. Leo said the debt was absorbed. He said the family handled it. Leo lied. Or maybe he just forgot. Or maybe he didn't bother to check the ledgers because he was too busy chasing skirts. Nero dropped the paper. It floated down to the desk. The debt was sold, Lyra. We don't hold it anymore. We sold it to the O'Malleys as a gesture of goodwill during the negotiations tonight. The negotiations Leo walked out of to fix his hair. My knees went weak. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. The Irish mob. They were butchers. They didn't do payment plans. They want their money, Nero said. And since your father doesn't have it, they want blood. No, Leo wouldn't let that happen. Leo isn't here. Nero stepped closer. He was relentless. A glacier moving forward, crushing everything in its path. They put a hit out on him, Lyra. Tonight. The room spun. My father. My pathetic, gambling, loving father. Dead. No, I whispered. You're lying. You're trying to scare me. Am I? Check the time. The hit is scheduled for midnight. You have 40 minutes. I scrambled for my phone. I needed to call Leo. He would fix this. He was the prince. He could snap his fingers and make it stop. I dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I tried texting. Message failed. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the device. What is happening? Why won't it go through? Nero watched me. He looked bored. He pulled his own phone out of his pocket. He reached out and turned his screen toward me. It was a mirroring app. It showed a list of blocked numbers. My number was at the top. You're blocked, Nero said. I stared at the screen. I couldn't breathe. Blocked. I blocked you, he clarified. On Leo's phone. I did it 10 minutes ago while he was in the bathroom. You touched his phone? I handle security, Lyra. I handle everything. Leo doesn't even know his own passcode half the time. I blocked you. I diverted your calls. He can't hear you. He doesn't know you're in trouble. And even if he did, do you really think he would leave that blonde to come save your father? The cruelty of it took my breath away. He had isolated me. He had cut the lines. He had trapped me in a box and welded the lid shut. Why? I choked out. Why are you doing this? Because I can save him. The words hung in the air. I looked up at him. Hope, desperate and clawing, rose in my chest. You can? I can make a call. I can tell the Irish to stand down. They listen to me. They fear me. Leo is a joke to them, but I am the Reaper. If I tell them the debt is cleared, it is cleared. Then do it. Please, Nero, do it. He didn't move. He didn't reach for his phone. He just watched me with those dark, burning eyes. I don't do charity, he said. What do you want? I will pay you back. I will work at the club. I don't want money. Then what? You. The word was a whisper, but it hit me like a physical blow. Me? I want one night, he said. His voice dropped an octave, becoming rougher, darker. Just one night. No Leo. No fake smiles. No games. Just you and me. I stared at him. He was blackmailing me. He was extorting me for sex. It was monstrous. It was evil. And God help me, my body reacted. My pulse hammered in my throat. My skin flushed. The way he looked at me. Like he wanted to devour me whole. Like he was starving and I was the only meal left on earth. One night, I repeated. And you save my father? I save his life. I clear the debt. He walks away free. And Leo? Nero's lip curled. Leo never has to know. You go back to him tomorrow. You play the happy fiancé. You get your safety net. But tonight you belong to me. I should slap him. I should scream for help. I should run out that door and take my chances with the Irish. But I looked at him. Really looked at him. Under the cold mask, I saw the fire. I saw the desperation. He wasn't just doing this to hurt me. He was doing this because he needed it. He needed to break the rules. He needed to touch the flame, even if it burned him. And I wanted him to burn. I wanted him to ruin me. I wanted to stop pretending that I loved the prince when all I dreamed about was the monster. I closed my eyes. I thought of my father's face. I thought of the bruise on my arm. I thought of Leo walking away with the blonde. I opened my eyes. Okay, I whispered. Nero went still. He looked like he hadn't expected me to agree. For a second, he looked almost regretful. Then the mask slammed back down. Good, he said. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. He put it to his ear, his eyes never leaving mine. It is done, he said into the receiver. The debt is paid. Call off the dogs. He hung up. Let's go, he said. Where? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one can hear you scream. He held out his hand. It was the same hand that had shattered the wine glass. The same hand that had broken fingers. I took it. His skin was rough and hot. He laced his fingers through mine, a possessive, crushing grip. He led me out of the office, down the back stairs, and into the cool night air. We walked past the valet stand to a black sports car parked in the shadows. He opened the door for me. I got in. As he walked around to the driver's side, I looked at my phone one last time. Message failed. I turned it off and threw it into the back seat. Leo wasn't coming. Night Leo was a lie. But Nero was here. And he was going to burn me alive.
Chapter 8. Nero. The drive was silent. I drove fast. I drove like the devil was snapping at my heels, pushing the Aston Martin until the engine screamed and the scenery blurred into streaks of black and gray. Lyra sat in the passenger seat. She did not speak. She did not look at me. She stared out the window, her hands clenched in her lap, twisting the gold fabric of her dress until her knuckles turned white. She was terrified. Good. She should be. I had taken her phone. I had cut her off from the world. I had blackmailed her into my car and was currently driving her to a location that did not exist on any map. I was the villain of this story. I had accepted that role a long time ago, but tonight I was playing it with a vengeance. I told myself this was necessary. I told myself it was a purge. I had been obsessed with her for 6 months. I had let a fantasy take root in my brain, a weed that was choking out my logic and my discipline. I had convinced myself she was special. I had convinced myself she was the light to my dark. It was bullshit. It was a weakness. Tonight was about destroying the fantasy. I would take her. I would use her. I would see that she was just flesh and bone and bad decisions, just like everyone else. I would get her out of my system, and then I would put her back in her box and let Leo marry her. I would be free. I turned off the highway onto a gravel road that wound up into the hills. The city lights faded behind us, swallowed by the dense forest. We arrived at the safe house 20 minutes later. It was not a home. It was a bunker designed by an architect who hated people. Concrete walls, bulletproof glass, steel beams. It sat on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the dark expanse of the ocean. It was cold, sterile, and impenetrable. It was the only place I felt like myself. I killed the engine. The silence that rushed in was deafening. "Get out," I said. Lyra didn't move immediately. She took a breath, a shaky inhale that rattled in the small space. Then she opened the door and stepped out into the night air. The wind was biting up here. It whipped her hair around her face and pressed the thin fabric of her dress against her body. She shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. I didn't offer her my jacket. I wasn't her savior tonight. I unlocked the front door with a biometric scan and ushered her inside. The interior was stark. Minimalist furniture, polished concrete floors, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out into the void. There were no photos, no personal touches, just space and shadows. I walked to the kitchen island and poured myself a drink. I didn't ask if she wanted one. I watched her in the reflection of the glass. She was standing in the middle of the living room, looking small and golden against the gray backdrop. She was looking around, her eyes wide and assessing. She wasn't cowering. She was calculating. I turned around, leaning back against the counter. I took a sip of the bourbon. It tasted like smoke. "Take it off," I said. She froze. She turned to face me slowly. "What?" "The dress," I said. "Take it off." Her chin went up, just like that. The fear was there, pulsing in the hollow of her throat, but she covered it with that defiance that drove me mad. "You said one night," she said. "You didn't say I had to strip on command like a showgirl." I set the glass down. The sound echoed in the empty room. I said, "You belong to me tonight. That means I decide what you wear. And right now, I decide you wear nothing. I am not doing it." I pushed off the counter. I walked toward her. I didn't rush. I let the sound of my footsteps on the concrete set the pace. "You agreed to the deal, Lyra. Your father is safe. The debt is cleared. The Irish are gone." I held up my end of the bargain. Now you hold up yours. I was feet away from her now. I towered over her. I could smell the jasmine perfume, the champagne, the underlying scent of her skin that haunted my dreams. "Or do you want me to call them back?" I asked softly. "I can undo it all with one text." She paled. "You wouldn't. Try me." We stared at each other. A battle of wills in the center of a fortress. She hated me. I could see it in her eyes. The hero worship was gone. The soft looks she gave me across the dinner table were gone. There was only resentment and fear. It hurt. It felt like a blade twisting in my gut. But it was better this way. Hate was safe. Hate kept us apart. Fine, she spat. She reached behind her neck. Her fingers trembled as she undid the clasp of the dress. I watched. I didn't help. I didn't look away. The halter neck fell loose. The gold fabric slumped, held up only by gravity and the curve of her breasts. She reached for the zipper at the small of her back. It was a slow, torturous sound. Sp. She pushed the fabric down over her hips. It pooled at her feet in a shimmer of gold. She stood there in nothing but a scrap of lace panties and her high heels. I stopped breathing. I had imagined this. God, I had imagined this 1,000 times. In the shower, in meetings, driving down the highway at 3 a.m. I had pictured her body in high definition. My imagination was an insult to the reality. She was perfect. Her skin was pale and luminous in the moonlight filtering through the windows. Her curves were soft, feminine, devastating. Her breasts were full, tipped with rose. Her waist nipped in, flaring out to hips that begged for my hands. She wasn't just a body. She was a work of art carved from desire and trouble. She crossed her arms over her chest, trying to hide herself. Her face turned away, a flush rising up her neck. "Look at me," I rasped. She shook her head. "Look at me, Lyra." She turned her head. Her eyes met mine. They were wet, shimmering with unshed tears. But she didn't look broken. She looked furious. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Is this what you wanted? To humiliate me, to make me feel small so you can feel big?" No. I didn't want to humiliate her. I wanted to possess her. I wanted to consume her. I wanted to know that she was real. I took a step closer. The air between us was thick, heavy with tension and heat. "You think this is about power?" I said. "Isn't it?" I reached out. My hand hovered over her shoulder. I didn't touch her. Not yet. I could feel the heat of her skin radiating against my palm. "You think I brought you here to break you?" I said. "Didn't you?" I shook my head. "I brought you here because I am starving." Her breath hitched. Her arms dropped to her sides, leaving her exposed, defenseless. I traced the line of her jaw with my knuckle. Her skin was soft. So soft it made my calluses feel like sandpaper. She shivered, but she didn't pull away. "I am not a good man, Lyra," I whispered. "I am selfish. I am cruel. I am everything I told you to run from." My hand drifted down her neck, over her collarbone, to the swell of her breast. I cupped her. She was heavy and warm in my hand. Her heart beat against my palm, a frantic rhythm that matched my own. "I promised myself I would hate this," I said. "I promised myself I would take you and leave you and never look back." I brushed my thumb over her nipple. It hardened instantly. A small, ragged gasp escaped her lips. "But I look at you, and I don't want to leave." I stepped into her space. My body brushed against hers. The friction sent a shockwave through me that nearly brought me to my knees. I grabbed her waist with both hands. I pulled her against me, skin to suit, softness to hardness. She gasped, her hands coming up to rest on my chest. She could have pushed me away. She could have clawed my eyes out. She grabbed my lapels instead. She held on. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I tried to stay away," I groaned, burying my face in the curve of her neck. "I tried to let him have you. I tried to be the brother I am supposed to be." I inhaled her scent. It was intoxicating. Better than whiskey, better than violence. "But you looked at me," I said against her skin. "You looked at me in the dark, and you saw me, and I couldn't let you go." I pulled back to look at her. Her eyes were searching mine. Confusion, fear, and underneath it all, that same fire. That same spark that had drawn me in from the beginning. "Kiss me," she said. The command shocked me. She wasn't cowering. She wasn't crying. She was demanding. "I warned you," I said. "I told you I am the devil." "Then take me to hell, Nero. I am tired of the purgatory." Something snapped in my chest. The last restraint. The last bar of the cage. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I crashed my mouth onto hers. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a collision. It was a starvation. I devoured her. I kissed her like I needed her air to breathe. I bit her lip, tasting copper and desire. She made a noise in her throat, a whimper that drove me insane. She opened for me. She let me in. Her hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, deeper. She tasted like champagne and secrets. She tasted like mine. I swept her up into my arms. She wrapped her legs around my waist, burying her face in my neck. I carried her toward the bedroom. The game was over. The lies were over. Tonight, there were no masks. Tonight, there was only the fire. And we were both going to burn.
Chapter 9. Lyra. I braced myself for the impact. I braced myself for the pain, the roughness, the taking. Nero had spent the last hour telling me he was a villain. He had told me he was going to use me. He had told me he was going to break me to get me out of his system. I lay back against the dark gray sheets of his bed, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I was naked, exposed. The moonlight filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows painted my skin in shades of silver and blue. He loomed over me. He was a mountain of muscle and scars, stripped of his shirt, his chest heaving with restrained violence. His eyes were black holes, devouring every inch of me. I closed my eyes. I waited for the storm, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt a touch so light it was almost a ghost. His fingertips grazed my ankle. They trailed up my calf, over my knee, mapping the curve of my thigh. It wasn't a grab. It wasn't a demand. It was a question. I opened my eyes. Nero was kneeling between my legs. He wasn't looking at my body like a piece of meat. He was looking at me like I was a religious artifact he was terrified to touch but desperate to believe in. His hands shook. The monster of the Moretti family, the enforcer who broke bones without blinking, was shaking. "You are so small," he whispered. His voice was rough, like gravel, but the tone was filled with a reverence that stole the breath from my lungs. "I am not small," I managed to say. "You are just massive." He didn't smile. He leaned forward, bracing his weight on his forearms so he wouldn't crush me. His face hovered inches from mine. I could feel the heat radiating off him, a furnace in the cold room. "I am going to hurt you, Lyra. I am too big. I am too rough. I don't know how to do this gently." "Then don't be gentle," I whispered. "I don't want gentle, I want you." He groaned, a low, guttural sound that vibrated in my chest. He lowered his head and pressed a kiss to the hollow of my throat. It wasn't a bite. It wasn't a bruise. It was a worship. He moved lower. He kissed the slope of my breast. He kissed the sensitive skin over my ribs. He kissed the scar on my hip from when I fell off a bike when I was 10. He lingered there, tracing the white line with his tongue as if he could heal the memory of the pain. I arched my back, my fingers tangling in his hair. "Nero, please." He came back up to my mouth. He kissed me and it felt like drowning. It felt like being pulled under a dark wave, but instead of fighting for air, I wanted to breathe him in. When he finally entered me, he didn't thrust. He didn't tear. He sank into me by slow, agonizing degrees. He watched my face the entire time. his eyes searching for any sign of pain, any reason to stop. It hurt. Of course it hurt. He was huge, filling me until I felt stretched to my limit. But it was a good hurt. It was a fullness that chased away the hollowness I had carried around for years. "You are okay," he rasped, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort of holding back. "Tell me you are okay." "I am," I gasped. "I am more than okay, just, please, move." He moved, and it wasn't the violent coupling he had threatened. It was a dismantling. With every stroke, he took me apart. He stripped away the girl who smiled for cameras. He stripped away the daughter who held her family together. He stripped away the fear and the debt and the lies. He made me feel precious. He murmured things against my skin, words I couldn't quite catch. Prayers in Italian that sounded like desperate confessions. He touched me everywhere, his large hands learning the map of my body, as if he wanted to memorize it before he was exiled. When the end came, it wasn't an explosion. It was a shattering. I fell apart in his arms, sobbing his name, clinging to his shoulders as the world dissolved into white light. He followed me moments later, burying his face in my neck, his body shuddering with a release that felt like a surrender. We lay there in the tangled sheets, our breathing harsh and synced in the quiet room. He didn't pull away. He didn't roll over and go to sleep. He stayed heavy on top of me, his weight grounding me to the earth. I ran my hand down his back, feeling the damp skin, the ridges of muscle. "Nero," I whispered. He lifted his head. He looked wrecked. His eyes were blown wide, unguarded for the first time since I had met him. "I ruined you," he said hoarsely. I smiled, tracing the line of his jaw. "No, you found me." He stared at me for a long moment, then he kissed my forehead. He rolled off me, but he didn't leave. He scooped me up into his arms as if I weighed nothing. "Where are we going?" I asked, resting my head against his shoulder. "To get you clean." He carried me to the bathroom. It was a cavern of slate and chrome, cold and masculine. He set me down on the counter and turned on the shower. Steam began to fill the room, softening the harsh edges. He stepped into the spray, pulling me in with him. He washed me. He didn't do it to be sexual. He did it with a focused, intense care. He took a washcloth and lathered it with soap that smelled like cedar and bergamot. He washed my back. He washed my arms. He washed my feet. When he reached the bruise on my arm, the one my mother had given me, the one I had covered with makeup hours ago, he stopped. The water cascaded over us, hot and soothing. Nero stared at the purple mark. He traced it with his thumb, his touch feather-light. "Who did this?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but it carried the threat of a thunderstorm. I pulled my arm back. "It doesn't matter. It matters. Was it a debtor? Was it one of the sharks? No." "Then who?" I looked down at the water swirling around the drain. "It's nothing, Nero." I bruise easily. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. Water dripped from his eyelashes. His eyes were fierce. "Do not lie to me, Lyra. Not here. Not after this. Who put their hands on you?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It was my mother." He froze. "Your mother?" I nodded. She gets angry. When things don't go her way, when my father loses money, when I don't smile enough, she grabs, she pinches, sometimes she throws things. His jaw tightened until I thought his teeth might shatter. He didn't say anything. He just pulled me against his chest and held me. He held me so tight I could feel the steady, powerful beat of his heart against my cheek. He finished washing me in silence. He turned off the water and wrapped me in a towel that was big enough to swallow me whole. He dried my hair, his fingers massaging my scalp with a tenderness that made my chest ache. He carried me back out to the living room. He sat me down on the rug in front of the fireplace and lit the gas logs. Then he disappeared into the kitchen. He came back a few minutes later with 2 mugs of tea. He sat down next to me, his back against the sofa, his long legs stretched out on the floor. He was wearing nothing but a pair of gray sweatpants that hung low on his hips. "Here," he said, handing me a mug. "Drink." I took a sip. It was hot and sweet, chamomile and honey. We sat in silence, watching the flames dance. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was heavy, weighted with everything we had just shared. "Why do you stay?" he asked. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring into the fire. "I know why you say you stay," he continued. "To save your father. To pay the debt. But if your mother hurts you? If your father gambles away your life? Why are you so loyal to him? Why sacrifice yourself for a man who doesn't protect you?" I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. It was the question everyone asked. Or it was the question everyone would ask if they knew the truth. "I was 6, I said softly. Nero turned his head to look at me. We were living in a small apartment in Queens. My dad had just lost his job at the factory. He was drinking a lot back then. But my mom, she was worse. She was mean. She blamed him for everything. She blamed me for existing. I took a breath, the memory sharp and jagged in my mind. "One night," she snapped. "I had spilled juice on the rug. It was an accident. But she came at me with a belt. She had this look in her eyes, like she didn't see a child. She just saw something to break." I felt Nero's hand cover mine on the mug. His grip was warm and solid. I curled up in a ball in the corner, waiting for the hit. But it never came. My dad, he stepped in front of me. He took it. He took the belt. He took her screaming and her scratching and her rage. He let her beat him until she was exhausted just so she wouldn't touch me. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away quickly. "He is weak, Nero. I know he is. He is an addict and a coward, and he has made our lives a living hell. But that night, he was a giant. He saved me. He took the pain so I wouldn't have to." I looked at Nero. "So now I save him. I take the debt. I take the pressure. I take the fear. I stand in front of him and I shield him from the world, because for one night he shielded me." Nero didn't speak. He didn't tell me I was stupid. He didn't tell me that one act of bravery didn't excuse a lifetime of neglect. He just reached out and pulled me into his lap. He tucked my head under his chin and wrapped his arms around me, creating a fortress of muscle and bone. "I get it," he whispered into my hair. I closed my eyes, leaning into him. "You do?" "Yeah, I get it." He understood. Of course he did. He was the enforcer. He was the brother who lived in the shadows so his twin could live in the light. He carried the weight of his family's sins so they didn't have to. He wasn't just a monster. He was a martyr. We sat there for a long time, 2 broken children trying to keep each other warm in a cold world. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore," he said, his voice a low rumble against my ear. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in the morning we had to go back. In the morning I had to be Leo's girlfriend again. In the morning Nero had to be the villain. But tonight, in this fortress at the edge of the world, I wasn't alone. And for the first time in my life, the fire inside me didn't feel like it was burning me down. It felt like it was lighting the way home.
Chapter 10. Nero. The sun rose like a judgment. It bled through the windshield of the Aston Martin, casting long, harsh shadows across the dashboard. I squinted against the light, gripping the steering wheel until the leather groaned under my hands. Lyra was asleep in the passenger seat. She was curled up against the door, her head resting on the cool glass. She was wearing one of my t-shirts over her ruined dress. It swallowed her whole, slipping off one shoulder to reveal the mark I had left on her neck, a dark, purple bruise that screamed possession. I should have woken her. I should have told her to cover it up. I didn't. I wanted the world to see it. I wanted everyone to know that she had been mine, even if it was just for a few stolen hours in a fortress at the edge of the world. The drive back to the city was a funeral procession. Every mile marker was a countdown to the moment I had to give her back. Every turn of the wheel was a betrayal of the promise I had made to myself in the dark, that I would keep her. I couldn't keep her. I was the enforcer. I was the man who broke bones and silenced witnesses. I lived in the dark. I couldn't drag her down there with me. She was light. She was fire. She needed air to burn, and I would only suffocate her. So I drove. I drove her back to her cage. We hit the city limits as the morning traffic began to thicken. The noise of New York filtered in, replacing the quiet intimacy of the safe house. Sirens, horns, the grinding of gears. Reality was crashing back in, loud and ugly. I pulled up to the curb a block away from her apartment building. I couldn't park in front. It was too risky, too exposed. I killed the engine. Lyra stirred. She blinked her eyes open, disoriented for a moment. Then she looked at me and the memory of the night rushed back into her gaze. Her cheeks flushed, her lips parted. "We are back," she whispered. "Yeah." She looked out the window at the familiar grime of her neighborhood. She looked disappointed. "I have to go back to being me now," she said softly. "You never stopped being you, Lyra. You just stopped pretending." She turned to me. She reached out, her hand hovering over my arm. She didn't touch me. She was waiting for permission. I hated that. I hated that I had made her wary. I grabbed her hand. I laced our fingers together, squeezing tight. "Last night," she started. "Don't," I cut her off. My voice was rougher than I intended. "Don't analyze it. Don't try to make it make sense. It happened. Does it change anything?" I looked at our joined hands. My knuckles were scarred and bruised. Hers were smooth and delicate. "It changes everything," I said, "and it changes nothing." She pulled her hand back. The rejection stung, even though I deserved it. "You are going back to being the monster," she said flatly. "I never stopped being the monster, Lyra. I just took the mask off for a few hours." She stared at me, searching for a crack in the armor. She wouldn't find one. I had spent the last 2 hours rebuilding the walls around my heart, brick by brick. I had to. If I didn't, I wouldn't be able to let her get out of this car. "Go," I said, "before someone sees us." She didn't move. "I am not ashamed of you, Nero. You should be." She let out a frustrated sigh. She grabbed the door handle and shoved it open. She stepped out onto the sidewalk, the morning wind whipping my t-shirt around her legs. She looked back at me one last time. "You are wrong," she said. "You aren't the monster. You are the only real thing in this entire city." She slammed the door. I watched her walk away. I watched her until she turned the corner toward her building. Then I slammed my fist against the steering wheel. The impact rattled my teeth. I sat there for a long time, breathing hard, trying to force the beast back into its cage. It didn't want to go. It wanted to run after her. It wanted to burn the city down and build a castle from the ashes where we could be alone. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Turn on the news." I frowned. I opened the browser on my phone and clicked on the local news stream. The video feed loaded. It showed a reporter standing in front of a familiar building. Lyra's apartment building. There were vans, cameras, a crowd of onlookers, and in the center of the circus, standing on the steps of the building like a king addressing his subjects, was Leo. I turned the volume up. Rumors of a union between the two families have been circulating for months, but today it seems the prince of the city is ready to make it official, the reporter was saying. I felt the blood drain from my face. No. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and fired the engine. I peeled away from the curb, tires screeching. I didn't care about exposure anymore. I didn't care about being seen. I drove the block in seconds. I swerved around a news van and slammed the brakes, parking illegally behind a black SUV that belonged to the family. I got out. The scene was chaos. Flashes went off like strobe lights. Reporters were shouting questions. Leo was smiling. He looked perfect. His suit was crisp. His hair was shiny. His teeth were white. He looked like the hero of a romantic comedy. And Lyra was standing in front of him. She looked shell-shocked. She was still wearing my t-shirt over her ruined dress. Her hair was messy. She looked like she had just rolled out of bed. Or out of my bed. Leo didn't seem to care. He was holding her hands. He was playing the part of the devoted boyfriend who had surprised his love early in the morning. I pushed through the crowd. I shoved a cameraman aside. I ignored the shouts of protest. I reached the inner circle just as Leo dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. The cameras clicked furiously. I froze. I was 10 feet away. I could stop this. I could walk up there, punch him in the face, and drag her away. But I couldn't move. Leo pulled a ring box from his pocket. He snapped it open. A diamond the size of a knuckle glittered in the morning sun. It was gaudy. It was excessive. It was Leo. "Lyra," he said. His voice projected for the cameras. "You are the music in my silence. You are the light in my dark. Will you marry me?" It was a line, a rehearsed, polished lie. Lyra stared down at him. She looked pale. She looked sick. She looked up. Her eyes scanned the crowd. She was looking for an escape. She found me. Our gazes locked over the heads of the reporters. Time stopped. The noise of the crowd faded into a dull roar. I saw the plea in her eyes. "Stop this. Save me. You promised you would save me." I took a step forward. My muscles coiled. I was ready to do it. I was ready to burn it all down. Then Leo looked at me. He was still on one knee, but he turned his head slightly. He saw me standing there. He saw the disheveled state of Lyra's clothes. He saw the bruise on her neck that matched the shape of my mouth. He knew. He smiled. It wasn't his charming smile. It was a baring of teeth. It was a territorial snarl hidden behind a veneer of brotherly love. He looked back at Lyra. He didn't just hold the ring up. He reached out and grabbed her hand. He squeezed it, hard. It was a threat. "Say yes, or the deal is off. Say yes, or your father dies." I realized then what was happening. This wasn't about love. This wasn't even about jealousy. This was business. My father, the Don, must have pressured him. The Irish deal had gone through, but the family needed stability. They needed a merger to show strength. Leo needed to lock this down to secure his inheritance. If I stopped this, I wasn't just ruining a moment. I was declaring war on my own family. I was putting a target on Lyra's back that was bigger than any debt. If I claimed her now, she wouldn't be the fiancée of the prince. She would be the whore who tore two brothers apart. She would be an enemy of the state. I couldn't protect her from that. Not yet. I stopped. I watched the hope drain out of Lyra's eyes. I watched the light go out. She looked at Leo. She looked at the ring. She looked at the cameras. "Yes," she whispered. It was barely audible, but Leo made sure everyone heard it. He jumped up and kissed her. He spun her around. The crowd cheered. I felt like I had been shot. It was a physical pain, a tearing in the center of my chest. Leo looked at me over her shoulder as he hugged her. He winked. He had won. He had the girl, he had the power, he had the light, and I was back in the shadows. Lyra pulled away from him. She looked for me again. She wanted me to do something. She wanted me to fight for her. I looked at her. I memorized her face. I etched the betrayal in her eyes into my soul so I would never forget the price of my cowardice. I turned my back on her. I walked away. I pushed through the cheering crowd. I ignored the reporters who tried to stick microphones in my face. I got back into my car. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to be away from the smell of her, away from the memory of her skin against mine. I drove until I hit the industrial district. I pulled into the lot of an old boxing gym I owned. I got out and walked inside. It was empty. It smelled of stale sweat and leather. I walked to the heavy bag hanging in the center of the room. I didn't wrap my hands. I didn't put on gloves. I hid it. I hid it until the leather split. I hid it until my knuckles burst and blood splattered onto the floor. I hid it until my arms were lead and my lungs were burning. I screamed. It was a raw, primal sound that tore from my throat. It was the sound of the beast rattling the bars of the cage. I had saved her life last night, and this morning I had handed her a life sentence. I collapsed onto the mat, my chest heaving, my hands throbbing. I closed my eyes, but I couldn't block out the image. Leo on one knee, the ring, the yes. It was done. She belonged to him now. But as I lay there in the dark, tasting my own blood, a thought took root in the ashes of my mind. A dark, dangerous seed. She said yes to save her father. She said yes because she had no choice. But she had looked for me. She had wanted me to stop it. The engagement was a shackle, a contract. But contracts could be broken. I sat up. I looked at my bloody hands. I was the enforcer. I was the monster. I didn't play by the rules. Leo thought he had won. He thought he had trapped her. He forgot one thing. You cannot trap a wildfire, and you cannot kill a monster that is already dead. I stood up. I wiped the blood on my jeans. Let him have his party. Let him have his press conference. I was going to get my girl back. And God help anyone who stood in my way. Even my brother. Especially my brother.
Chapter 11. Lyra. The diamond on my finger weighed 1,000 pounds. It sat there, cold and hard and glittering, mocking me every time the light hit it. It was a flawless stone, probably worth more than the entire building that housed my jazz club. To everyone in the ballroom, it was a symbol of love and power, a promise of forever. To me, it was a shackle. I stood by Leo's side, my hand tucked into the crook of his elbow. We were a matched set. He was in a midnight blue tuxedo that fit him perfectly, and I was wearing a gown of silver silk that clung to every curve before pooling on the floor. It was backless, sleeveless, and cut dangerously low. Leo had picked it out. He said he wanted everyone to see what he had won. Because that was what this was. A victory lap. He had won. The family had won. And I had lost. Leo leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. Smile, Lyra. You look like you are at a funeral. I turned my head slightly. I forced the corners of my mouth up. It felt like the skin might crack. Maybe I am, I whispered back. Leo laughed. He threw his head back and laughed as if I had told the funniest joke in the world. He squeezed my arm, his fingers digging in just enough to hurt. Just enough to remind me who was in charge. You are so dramatic, he said, keeping his voice low so the passing waiter wouldn't hear. You are getting everything a girl could want. Money, status, protection. You should be thanking me. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had pretended to date for 6 months. The man I had defended. The man I had thought was harmless. He wasn't harmless. He was a snake who had waited in the grass until I was vulnerable enough to bite. You threatened my club, I said. My voice was flat. You told me you would burn it down. Leo shrugged, accepting a glass of champagne from a tray. I said the family would seize the assets. It is just business, babe. The club is collateral. You marry me, the club stays yours. You refuse, well, it becomes a parking lot. He took a sip of his drink, his eyes scanning the room. Besides, he added, his gaze landing on a group of older men near the buffet. It is not like you had a better offer. My stomach twisted. He was talking about Nero. I hadn't seen him. Not since the morning on the steps of my apartment building when I said yes. He hadn't come to the house. He hadn't texted. He hadn't called. He had vanished. Part of me, the stupid, hopeful part that still believed in fairy tales, had thought he would stop this. I thought he would burst into the engagement party and object. I thought he would drag me out of here like he had dragged me out of the casino. But he wasn't here. I scanned the room for the 100th time. I looked at the shadows in the corners, the spaces between the columns. I looked for the man in black. He wasn't there. He had given up. Or maybe he had realized I wasn't worth the trouble. I was just a girl with a debt and a messy life. He was the enforcer. He had better things to do than save me from his own brother. Leo pulled me toward the center of the room. Come on, my father wants to make a toast. I planted my feet. No. Leo stopped. He looked down at me, his smile tightening at the edges. What did you say? I said no. I need a minute. You have had a minute. You have had all night. I need the bathroom, Leo, unless you want me to throw up on your shoes while your father is speaking. His expression flickered with disgust. He released my arm. Fine, 5 minutes. If you are not back, I am sending security to drag you out. I didn't wait for him to finish. I turned and walked away, keeping my head high. I felt the eyes of the room on me. Envy, curiosity, judgment. They saw the future Mrs. Leo Moretti. They saw a lucky girl who had hit the jackpot. They didn't see the noose around my neck. I pushed through the heavy double doors of the ladies' room and let them swing shut behind me. The silence was instant and blissful. It was a lavish room, all marble floors and gold fixtures. There was a lounge area with velvet settees and a wall of mirrors that reflected my misery back at me from a dozen angles. I walked to the sink and gripped the cold porcelain. I stared at myself. I looked like a stranger. The silver dress made me look like a statue. My makeup was flawless, hiding the exhaustion and the fear. My hair was swept up in an elaborate chignon that pulled at my scalp. I looked like a doll, a pretty breakable thing to be put on a shelf. I turned on the tap, letting the cold water run over my wrists. I tried to breathe. I tried to slow the racing of my heart. You can do this, I whispered to my reflection. You have survived worse. You survived your mother. You survived the debt. You can survive him. But surviving wasn't living, and I was so tired of just surviving. The door behind me opened. I didn't turn around. I assumed it was another guest, coming to powder her nose and gossip about the bride-to-be. I reached for a paper towel to dry my hands. Fix your face. The voice was like a whip crack. I froze. My blood ran cold. I looked in the mirror. My mother was standing behind me. She was wearing a navy blue gown that looked severe and expensive. Her hair was pulled back tight, stretching the skin of her face. Her eyes were hard, glittering with a mixture of triumph and rage. I turned slowly. Mom. She didn't smile. She didn't ask how I was. She walked toward me, her heels clicking sharply on the marble. You look miserable, she spat. Everyone is talking about it. The blushing bride looks like she is walking to the gallows. I am not happy, Mom. Why would I look happy? She stopped a foot away from me. Because you won, you stupid girl. You caught the prince. Do you have any idea what this marriage does for us? Do you have any idea how much money this brings in? It is always about the money, isn't it? Of course it is about the money. She threw her hands up. Your father gambled away our future. He gambled away my life. And now you have a chance to fix it. You have a chance to pay us back for everything we sacrificed for you. Sacrificed? I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You didn't sacrifice anything. You resented me from the day I was born. She stepped closer. Her perfume clogged my throat. It smelled like roses and rot. I resented you because you were weak, she hissed. You were always crying, always needing. You were a burden, Lyra. And now, finally, you are useful. Useful. That was all I was. A tool, a bargaining chip. I am not doing this for you, I said, my voice shaking. I am doing this for the club. I am doing this so I can get away from you. She sneered. You think marriage will get you away from me? You are a Moretti now. Or you will be. That makes us family. That means I will be in your life forever. I will be at your house. I will be at your parties. I will be spending your husband's money while you spread your legs to keep him happy. I flinched. The vulgarity of it, the cruelty, hit me like a slap. Get out, I whispered. Make me. She reached out and grabbed my arm. She didn't grab my wrist. She didn't grab my hand. She grabbed my upper arm. Her fingers dug in, finding the exact spot where the old bruise was still fading. She squeezed. Pain shot down my arm, hot and sharp. I gasped, trying to pull away, but her grip was surprisingly strong. It was the strength of pure malice. You will go out there, she said, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. You will smile. You will kiss him when he asks. You will look at him like he is the sun and the stars. Let go of me. Do not yell at me. She dug her nails in. I felt the skin break. I felt the sharp sting of it, familiar and nauseating. If you ruin this, Lyra, I swear to God I will make you regret it. I will make your life a living hell. I will burn that little club of yours to the ground myself. She was hurting me. She was threatening the only thing I had left. And for the first time in my life, I wanted to hurt her back. I wanted to shove her. I wanted to scream. But I was frozen. The old fear, the childhood terror of the woman who was supposed to love me paralyzed me. I was 6 years old again, waiting for the belt. You are hurting me, I whimpered. Good. Maybe pain will help you remember your place. She raised her other hand. I saw it coming. The slap. The open palm aimed for my cheek. I flinched, squeezing my eyes shut, bracing for the impact. It never came. There was a sound. A loud, violent crash as the double doors to the bathroom were kicked open. They slammed against the walls with a thunderous boom that shook the mirrors. My mother froze. Her hand hovered in the air. I opened my eyes. I looked past her, toward the door. Nero. He was standing in the doorway. He looked like he had walked through a war zone to get here. His suit jacket was gone. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the top. The sleeves rolled up. His hair was messy, wild. But it was his face that stopped my heart. He was terrifying. His eyes were black pits of absolute fury. His chest was heaving. His hands were clenched into fists at his sides. He radiated violence. It came off him in waves, filling the room, sucking out the air. He looked at me. He saw the tears in my eyes. He saw my mother's hand gripping my arm. He saw her other hand raised to strike. He went still. It was an unnatural stillness. The kind of stillness that happens right before an explosion. The kind of stillness that predators have before they lunge. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. He just looked at my mother's hand on my arm. "Drop her," he said. His voice was not a shout. It was a low, vibrating growl that seemed to come from the floorboards. It was the sound of a tectonic plate shifting. My mother looked at him. She looked confused. She looked annoyed. "Excuse me? This is a private conversation. Get out." Nero moved. He didn't walk. He blurred. 1 second he was at the door, the next he was crossing the marble floor in long, predatory strides. My mother gasped. She tried to step back, but she didn't let go of me. Nero reached us. He didn't look at me. He looked at her hand. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. He didn't just hold it. He crushed it. My mother screamed. It was a high, thin sound of shock and pain. Her fingers flew open, releasing my arm. Nero didn't let go. He twisted her wrist, forcing her arm behind her back, forcing her to bend forward until she was nearly on her knees. He didn't stop. He pushed her. He shoved her back until she slammed against the marble counter of the vanity. "Don't you ever," he snarled, leaning into her face, "touch her again." "You are hurting me," my mother shrieked. "Let go, I am her mother. I don't give a fuck who you are." Nero slammed his free hand onto the mirror next to her head. The glass cracked. A spiderweb of fractures spread out from his fist. My mother stopped screaming. She stared at the broken glass, her eyes wide with terror. "You put your hands on her," Nero said, his voice shaking with rage. "You hurt her. I was just disciplining her." She was being difficult. Disciplining her. Nero laughed. It was a terrifying sound. "I saw the bruise," he whispered. "I saw the marks on her arm weeks ago." "That was you?" My mother didn't answer. She was trembling. Nero looked at me then. He turned his head slowly. The rage in his eyes didn't vanish, but it shifted. It softened around the edges when it landed on me. He looked at my arm. He saw the fresh crescent moons where her nails had dug in. A drop of blood welled up. His pupils dilated. "Did she hit you?" he asked me. I shook my head, mute. "No, you stopped her." He looked back at my mother. "If you ever," he said, enunciating every word, "look at her wrong. If you ever raise your voice to her. If you ever touch a single hair on her head. I will cut your hands off." "My," mother whimpered. "Do you understand me?" Nero roared. Yes, I understand." He released her. He shoved her away with disgust, as if touching her made him dirty. "Get out." My mother scrambled away from the counter. She clutched her wrist to her chest. She looked at me one last time, her eyes filled with hate, before she ran for the door. She didn't look back. The door swung shut. Silence rushed back into the room, heavy and thick. I stood there shivering. My arm throbbed. My heart thundered. Nero stood with his back to me. He was breathing hard, his shoulders rising and falling. His hand, the one that had cracked the mirror, was resting on the counter. His knuckles were bleeding. "Nero," I whispered. He turned. The monster was gone. Or at least, the monster that wanted to hurt was gone. In its place was a man who looked like he was bleeding out. He walked toward me. He didn't rush this time. He moved carefully, as if he was afraid he might break the air around us. He stopped in front of me. He didn't touch me. He just looked. He looked at my face. He looked at my arm. I didn't know," he said. His voice was broken. Gravel and glass. I tried to smile, but my lip quivered. "It's okay. It is not okay." He reached out. His hand hovered near my arm, afraid to make contact. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Why didn't you tell me it was her?" "I was ashamed," I admitted. "I didn't want you to know I was weak." Weak. He closed the distance. He grabbed my face in both hands. His palms were rough, hot, and desperate. "You are the strongest person I have ever met, Lyra." You survived that? You survived living with a monster like that? I leaned into his touch. I closed my eyes. She isn't the monster, Nero. You are. Remember? No. He brushed his thumbs over my cheeks, wiping away tears I didn't know had fallen. I am not the monster tonight, he said fiercely. I am the shield. He looked down at my dress. He looked at the ring on my finger. Take it off, he said. What? The ring. Take it off. Nero, I can't. Leo, the debt. Fuck the debt. Fuck Leo. He lowered his forehead to mine. I am not asking you, Lyra. I am telling you, you are done. You are done being sold. You are done being hurt. You are done being afraid. But my father. I will handle your father. I will handle the Irish. I will handle the devil himself if he comes for you. He pulled back to look me in the eye. You are leaving with me, right now. I blinked. Leaving? Where? Away. Anywhere. I don't care. But you are not staying here. You are not marrying him. He was crazy. He was talking about kidnapping the bride from her own engagement party. He was talking about starting a war with his own family. And looking at him, seeing the fierce, terrifying love burning in his dark eyes, I knew he would do it. He would burn the world down for me. I looked at the door where my mother had fled. I thought about Leo, waiting outside with his fake smile and his empty promises. Then I looked at Nero, the man who had cracked a mirror because someone hurt me, the man who texted me in the dark to make sure I wasn't lonely. I reached for my left hand. I gripped the diamond ring. It was tight. It resisted. But I pulled. It slid off my finger. I held it out to him. He took it. He didn't look at it. He shoved it into his pocket as if it were trash. Then he grabbed my hand. His grip was possessive. Unbreakable. Let's go, he said. I nodded. He led me to the door. He kicked it open. And we walked out into the chaos, hand in hand, leaving the wreckage behind us.
Chapter 12. Nero. The ballroom was a cage of noise and diamonds. I stood near the bar, nursing a whiskey I hadn't tasted, scanning the room. I was looking for gold. I was looking for the dress that clung to Lyra's body like a second skin. She was gone. She had been next to Leo 5 minutes ago, looking pale and beautiful and devastatingly unhappy. Leo had been preening, soaking up the applause, oblivious to the fact that the woman on his arm looked like she was walking to the gallows. I had watched them. I had forced myself to stand still, to keep my hands at my sides, to not march over there and tear the ring off her finger. Let her go, I told myself. She chose this. She chose safety. But then she vanished. Leo was still there, laughing with a group of investors, but Lyra was gone. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. It was the instinct that had kept me alive in this business for 10 years. The sense that the air pressure had dropped before the storm hit. I set my glass down. I started to move. I checked the exits. I checked the terrace. Nothing. Then I saw her mother. Or rather, I didn't see her. The woman who had been hovering around the edges of the party, looking like a vulture in navy silk, was missing too. My blood went cold. I moved faster. I headed for the hallway that led to the private suites and the restrooms. I heard it before I reached the door. It wasn't a scream. It was a whimper. A sound of pain and fear that cut through the muffled music of the ballroom like a razor. You are hurting me. It was Lyra, the beast inside me, the one I had kept chained and starved for 26 years. Woke up. It roared. It didn't just rattle the bars. It tore them off the hinges. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I hit the double doors of the ladies' room with my shoulder. I hit them hard enough to splinter the wood. They flew open, banging against the walls with a crash that sounded like a gunshot. The scene froze. Lyra was backed against the sinks. She looked small. She looked terrified. Tears were streaming down her face, ruining the makeup she had worn like armor. And her mother was there. She had her hand wrapped around Lyra's arm, her upper arm, the exact spot where I had seen the bruise months ago, the spot I had suspected. She grabbed my arm and dug her nails in. The realization hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't a debtor. It wasn't a stranger. It was her mother, the woman who was supposed to protect her, the woman who was supposed to love her. She was hurting her, right in front of me. And Lyra. Lyra was flinching. She was cowering. My fire, my wildfire, the girl who had challenged me in the dark, was reduced to a trembling child. I saw red. It wasn't a metaphor. My vision literally tunneled, the edges turning crimson. The sound of the party faded into a high-pitched ringing. Drop her. I didn't know if I said it or thought it. I crossed the room. I didn't walk. I hunted. Her mother looked at me. She looked annoyed. She looked entitled. I reached out and grabbed her wrist. I wanted to break it. I wanted to snap the bone like a twig. I wanted to tear her arm out of its socket. I squeezed. I heard the tendons crunch. She screamed. I didn't care. I shoved her back. I twisted her arm behind her back and slammed her into the counter. Don't you ever touch her again. The words tore out of my throat, raw and bleeding. I am her mother, she shrieked. I don't give a fuck who you are. I slammed my hand into the mirror next to her head. The glass shattered. It rained down into the sink, glittering like the diamonds Leo had bought to buy Lyra's silence. My knuckles split. Pain registered, distant and dull. I looked at Lyra. She was staring at me. Her eyes were wide, filled with shock. I looked at her arm, blood. 4 crescent moons cut into her skin, bright red drops welling up against the gold dress. It broke me. Seeing her bleed because of the people who were supposed to care for her, it shattered whatever restraint I had left. I terrified the mother. I threatened her. I told her I would cut her hands off, and I meant it. I meant every word. If she touched Lyra again, I would become the butcher they all thought I was. I threw the mother out. I watched her run, a coward in expensive silk. Then I turned to Lyra. The anger drained out of me, replaced by a crushing, overwhelming ache. I walked to her. I wanted to fall to my knees and beg for forgiveness, for not seeing it sooner, for letting her stay in that house, for pushing her toward a safe life that was actually a prison. I didn't know. I rasped. She tried to smile. It was the saddest thing I had ever seen. I touched her face. Her skin was wet with tears. Why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed. Ashamed. She was ashamed of surviving. I pulled her into me. I crushed her against my chest, burying my face in her hair. She smelled of jasmine and terror. This was it. The turning point. The point of no return. I couldn't let her go back. I couldn't let her marry Leo. I couldn't let her stay in this city, in this life, where people hurt her and used her. Leo didn't know. Or maybe he didn't care. Either way, he had failed. He had failed to protect her. That meant his rights were revoked. I pulled back. I looked at the ring on her finger. The diamond that Leo had put there to mark his territory. Take it off. She hesitated. She talked about the debt. She talked about the consequences. I didn't care about consequences. I would pay the debt myself. I would kill the Irish mob with my bare hands if I had to. I am not asking you, Lyra. I am telling you. She looked at me. She searched my face. She saw the monster, and she saw the man. She reached for the ring. She pulled it off. She handed it to me. It felt heavy in my hand. Cold. I shoved it in my pocket. I grabbed her hand. Her bare, trembling hand. Let's go. I led her out of the bathroom. I didn't look back at the broken mirror or the blood on the floor. I had a new mission, a new purpose. I was going to get her out. I was going to take her away from the parents who hurt her and the fiancé who neglected her. And if my brother tried to stop me, I clenched my jaw, the taste of violence heavy on my tongue. If my brother tried to stop me, I was going to have to show him exactly why they called me the enforcer. I kicked the door open and pulled my world out into the night.
Chapter 13. Lyra. The parking lot was a war zone, not literally. There were no guns, no soldiers, just a sleek black pavement illuminated by floodlights and the distant hum of the party we had just fled. But the energy in the air was violent. It crackled with tension and impending disaster. Nero was dragging me toward his car. His grip on my hand was iron. He was moving fast, his long strides eating up the distance, and I had to jog to keep up in my heels. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't care. As long as it was away from my mother, away from the ring, away from the cage. "Hey!" the shout came from behind us. I froze. I knew that voice. Nero didn't stop. He didn't even flinch. He kept walking, pulling me along. "Nero! Let her go!" Running footsteps. The scuff of dress shoes on asphalt. Leo. He caught up to us near the back of the lot. He grabbed Nero's shoulder and spun him around. "What the hell do you think you are doing?" Leo demanded. He was out of breath, his face flushed, his tie askew. He looked less like a prince and more like a panicked child who had lost his toy. Nero released my hand. He stepped between me and his brother, a human wall of muscle and rage. "I am taking her," Nero said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Taking her? She is my fiancée. The party is still going on. My father is about to make a toast. Fuck your toast." Leo's eyes widened. He looked from Nero to me. He saw my bare ring finger. He saw the way I was standing behind Nero, using him as a shield. He laughed. A harsh, incredulous sound. "Is this a joke? Are you kidnapping her? Nero, you have lost your mind." "Maybe," Nero said. "Or maybe I just found it." Leo stepped forward, trying to reach around Nero to grab me. "Lyra, come on! Stop playing games! We have to go back inside! Don't touch her!" Nero shoved Leo back. It was a hard shove, enough to make Leo stumble. Leo regained his balance. His expression darkened. The charm fell away, revealing the arrogance underneath. "You want to do this now? Here? In the parking lot? If you want to stop me, you are going to have to go through me." Leo sneered. "You are pathetic. Always the jealous little brother. You want what I have because you can't get it yourself. You want her? Fine. Take her for a ride. But she will come back. She always comes back. She needs me. She doesn't need you." Nero growled. "She never needed you." Leo looked at me. "Lyra, tell him who pays your father's debts. Tell him who keeps the wolves away." I stepped out from behind Nero. I looked at Leo. Really looked at him. For 6 months, I had convinced myself he was a necessary evil, a safe harbor. But standing there, bathed in the harsh floodlights, he just looked small. "You didn't keep them away," I said quietly. "You just changed the leash." Leo's face twisted. "What?" "You never cared, Leo. Not about me, not about my dad. You just wanted a trophy. You wanted someone to look good in photos. You left me alone tonight. You left me alone every night." "So?" Leo threw his hands up. "That is the deal. You get the money, I get the girl on my arm. It is a business arrangement, Lyra. Grow up. It is not business to me." I shouted. "It is my life." Leo rolled his eyes. "God, you are so dramatic. Just like—" He didn't finish the sentence, because Nero hit him. It was a right hook. Fast, brutal, efficient. It connected with Leo's jaw with a sickening crack. Leo went down. He hit the pavement hard, sprawling on his back. I gasped, my hands flying to my mouth. Nero didn't stop. He stood over his brother, his fists clenched, his chest heaving. "Don't you ever," he snarled, "talk to her like that." Leo groaned. He touched his jaw, his fingers coming away bloody. He looked up at Nero, dazed and furious. You hit me! Get up! You are crazy! Get up!" Nero grabbed Leo by the lapels of his tuxedo jacket and hauled him to his feet. Leo swung. It was a clumsy, desperate punch. Nero dodged it easily. He countered with a jab to the stomach that doubled Leo over. "Stop!" I screamed. "Nero, stop!" I ran toward them, grabbing Nero's arm. He was vibrating with rage. He felt like a live wire. He ignored me. He shoved Leo back against a parked car. "You think you are the prince?" Nero shouted, his face inches from Leo's. "You are nothing. You are a suit." A smile. "You don't know what it means to protect someone. You don't know what it means to care. I cared enough to give her a ring." Leo spat, blood flecking his lips. "You gave her a shackle. You left her alone to be preyed on. You let her mother hurt her." Leo froze. "Her mother?" "Yeah, her mother. The one you invited tonight. The one who cornered her in the bathroom and dug her claws into her arm. Did you notice the bruises, Leo? Did you ever look at her long enough to see the pain?" Leo looked at me. He looked at my arm. He looked confused. "I didn't know." "Because you didn't look," Nero roared. He hit him again, another blow to the jaw. Leo slumped against the car, sliding down to the pavement. I sobbed. "Nero, please! You are going to kill him!" Nero stood over him, breathing hard. His knuckles were raw. His eyes were wild. "He deserves it," Nero said. "Maybe he does," I cried, grabbing his face, forcing him to look at me. "But I don't want you to be the one who does it. I don't want you to be the monster, Nero." He stared at me. The rage in his eyes flickered, warring with something else, something desperate and sad. "I am the monster, Lyra. That is what I am." "No, you are the shield, remember?" He looked down at his brother. Leo was groaning, spitting blood onto the asphalt. He looked back at me. I texted you," he whispered. The non sequitur threw me. "What?" "That night. The contractors, the zoning permits, the poems, the late-night talks about your dreams." I froze. The world tilted on its axis. "It wasn't him," Nero said, pointing a shaking finger at Leo. "It was never him. He doesn't know your favorite song. He doesn't know you hate the dark. He doesn't know you want to own a jazz club because it reminds you of the only happy memory you have of your grandfather." My heart stopped. "How do you know that?" I whispered. "I never told anyone that. I only told Leo. Night, Leo." I looked at Leo, bleeding on the ground. He looked confused. He looked like a stranger. Then I looked at Nero, the man who stood in the shadows, the man who watched me, the man who knew everything. "It was you," I breathed. Nero nodded. He looked terrified, more terrified than he had looked fighting his brother. "I stole his phone. I replied to you. Then I gave you my burner number. I pretended to be him because I knew you wouldn't talk to me. I knew you hated me." I stared at him. The pieces slammed into place. The protective texts. The instant solutions to my problems. The way Leo sounded so different in writing. It was Nero. It had always been Nero. "You lied to me," I whispered. "I had to. You made me fall in love with a ghost. I made you fall in love with me," he shouted. "Me!" The words were mine. The feelings were mine. The man you poured your heart out to. That was me, Lyra. Just me. I stepped back. I felt dizzy. Betrayed. Relieved. Angry. "Why?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I am the bad one," he yelled, gesturing to himself. "I am the enforcer. I am the one people run from. Leo is the light. You wanted the light. I wanted to be in the light with you, just for a little while. He looked at me with such raw, naked vulnerability that it broke my heart. He hadn't done it to trick me. He hadn't done it to be cruel. He had done it because he was lonely, because he loved me and he didn't think he was allowed to. Leo groaned again, trying to sit up. You were texting her? Leo asked, wincing as he touched his jaw. You pretended to be me. Nero looked down at him. Yeah. Leo started to laugh. It was a wet, gurgling sound. That is Rich, the Ice Prince playing Romeo. Shut up, Nero said, but there was no heat in it. Leo looked at me. He spat a mouthful of blood onto the ground. Well, babe, he said, his voice raspy. Looks like you picked the wrong twin. I looked at Leo. He was shallow. He was selfish. He was a boy playing at being a man. Then I looked at Nero. He was broken. He was violent. He was a liar. But he was the one who listened. He was the one who saved me. He was the one who knew my favorite song. He was the one I loved. It wasn't just the texts, I realized. It was the man behind them. The man who cracked a mirror for me. The man who was willing to destroy his relationship with his brother just to keep me safe. I walked over to Nero. I took his bloody hand in mine. I didn't pick the wrong twin, I said softly. I just didn't know who the right one was. Nero looked at me. He looked like he was waiting for the blow. He looked like he expected me to run. You aren't mad? He asked. I am furious, I said. You lied to me. You manipulated me. I know, but you also saved me. I squeezed his hand. Take me away, Nero, please. He didn't hesitate. He nodded once. He looked down at Leo one last time. Stay down, he said. Leo lay back on the pavement, closing his eyes. Go. Just go. Before Dad comes out here and kills us all. Nero led me to his car. He opened the door for me. I got in. As he walked around to the driver's side, I looked back at the party. I looked at the lights, the music, the life I was leaving behind. I didn't miss it. I looked at Nero as he slid into the seat next to me. He looked battered. He looked exhausted. But for the first time since I met him, he didn't look alone. He started the engine. Where are we going? I asked. To the cabin, he said. The cabin? It is in the woods. Up north. No one goes there. No one will look for us there. Why do we need to hide? Because, Nero said, putting the car in gear. I just beat up the heir to the Moretti throne and stole his fiancée. The family isn't going to send a wedding gift, Lyra. They are going to send a hit squad. My breath hitched. We are running? Yeah. We are running. I reached out and put my hand on his thigh. Okay, I said. He looked at me surprised. Okay, yeah. As long as I am running with you. He covered my hand with his. He brought it to his lips and kissed my knuckles. It was a promise, a vow. Then he floored the gas and we drove into the dark.
Chapter 14. Nero. I drove like a man possessed. The speedometer climbed past 100. The streetlights blurred into streaks of neon white, whipping past the windows like tracer fire. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just gripped the leather steering wheel until my knuckles, already raw and bloody from my brother's jaw, turned white. Lyra sat next to me. She was silent. She wasn't crying anymore. She was staring out the windshield, her hand resting on her thigh, fingers curled into a fist. I had done it. I had crossed the line. I had broken the one rule I swore I would never break. I had raised a hand against my own blood, and I didn't regret it. That was the terrifying part. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel the crushing weight of remorse that I expected. I felt light. I felt clean. I felt like I had finally cut a cancer out of my chest. Leo had hurt her. He had neglected her. He had treated the most precious thing in the world like a bargaining chip. He deserved every punch. He deserved the blood on the asphalt. But satisfaction was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not now. I checked the rearview mirror. No headlights. Not yet. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked softly. "North," I said. "To the cabin. Is it safe?" "Nowhere is safe, Lyra, not anymore. But it is defensible." She didn't ask what I meant by that. She didn't ask why I sounded like a soldier preparing for a siege. She just nodded and looked back at the road. She trusted me. Even now, with my hands covered in my brother's blood, speeding away from the wreckage of her life, she trusted me. It terrified me more than the dawn ever could. My phone buzzed. It wasn't a call. It was a rhythmic, insistent vibration against my thigh. The burner phone. I ignored it. I kept my eyes on the road, weaving through the late-night traffic on the expressway. It buzzed again, and again. "Pick it up," Lyra said. "I can't. It might be important." "Nothing is more important than getting you out of the city." "Nero, pick it up." I cursed under my breath. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the black plastic brick. I kept one hand on the wheel and glanced at the screen. It was a text message. From a number that didn't exist. The dawn knows. My heart skipped a beat. I read the next line. "He saw the security footage from the parking lot. He saw you beat Leo. He saw you take the girl." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. Green light issued. "All crews. You have 1 hour before the perimeter locks down. Get out." The phone slipped from my fingers. It clattered into the cup holder. "Nero?" Lyra's voice was sharp. "What is it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. A green light. In our world, that didn't mean go. It meant open season. It meant the protection of the family name was stripped away. It meant any soldier, any associate, anyone looking to make a name for themselves or earn a favor from the dawn could put a bullet in my head and be rewarded for it. It wasn't a family squabble anymore. It wasn't a brotherly fight. It was treason. I had stolen the underboss's fiancée. I had assaulted an heir. I had embarrassed the family on the night of their biggest victory. My father wasn't going to send me to my room. He was going to send me to the morgue. And Lyra was sitting right next to me. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, tires screaming against the asphalt. We were on the shoulder of the highway, miles from the city limits, but not far enough. Not nearly far enough. I threw the car into park and turned to her. "Get out." Lyra blinked, thrown forward by the sudden stop. "What?" "Get out of the car, Lyra." "Now." She looked at me like I had lost my mind. "We are in the middle of nowhere." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about saving your life," I shouted. The violence in my voice filled the small cabin of the car. I grabbed the phone. I shoved the screen in her face, read what it says. She took the phone. She read the text. Her eyes scanned the words, moving back and forth. Her face paled in the dashboard lights. "Green light," she whispered. "What does that mean?" "It means kill on sight," I said brutally. "It means my father has ordered a hit. Not just on me, on anyone with me." She lowered the phone. Her hand was trembling. "If you stay in this car, you die," I said. "They will find us. They have satellites. They have trackers. They have an army. I can try to outrun them. I can try to fight them. But the odds are I am going to end up in a ditch. And if you are with me..." I couldn't finish the sentence. The image of her broken body, of the light gone from her eyes, was enough to stop my heart. "Get out," I repeated, my voice cracking. "There is a gas station a mile back. Walk there. Call your father. Tell him I kidnapped you. Tell him I forced you. Tell him you escaped. They won't hurt you if they think you are a victim." Lyra stared at me. She didn't move. "Did you hear me?" I roared. "Get out! No!" The word was quiet, steel wrapped in velvet. I stared at her. "No, I am not getting out, Nero. Are you stupid? Did you not hear what I just said? They're going to kill us. Then they kill us." She dropped the phone. She reached out and grabbed my face, my bloody, bruised, monstrous face. "I am not leaving you," she said. I tried to pull away. I tried to push her hands off. "I need you to leave. I need you to be safe. I can't fight them if I am worried about you. Then don't worry about me. Fight for us." She leaned in. Her eyes were fierce. There was no fear in them. Only that fire. That wildfire that had burned me down and built me back up. "You told me you would protect me," she said. "You told me you would burn the world down for me. Well, here is the match, Nero. Light it." I looked at her. She was insane. She was reckless. She was suicidal. And she was mine. She wasn't leaving. I could drag her out of the car. I could leave her on the side of the road, but she would just follow me. She would walk into the fire just to hold my hand. I let out a ragged breath. I felt the last of my resistance crumble. I leaned my forehead against hers. "You are going to get us killed," I whispered. "Maybe," she said. "But at least we won't be alone." I kissed her, hard, desperate. A kiss that tasted of goodbyes and last chances. Then I pulled back. I put the car in gear. "Hold on," I said. I floored it. The engine roared. The car leaped forward, tearing up the asphalt. I didn't look at the speedometer. I drove by instinct. I drove by fear. I took the next exit. I got off the main highway. The highways were traps. They had cameras. They had checkpoints. I took the back roads, the winding, unlit paths that cut through the forests and the mountains. I drove without headlights for miles, using only the moonlight to guide me, praying I didn't hit a deer or a tree. Lyra didn't speak. She kept her hand on my thigh, her fingers digging in every time we took a corner too fast. She was my anchor. She was the reason I didn't drive off a cliff. We drove for hours. The city faded into memory. The landscape changed from concrete to towering pines and snow-covered peaks. The cabin was off the grid. It was a ghost. My father had bought it decades ago under a shell company that didn't exist anymore. He had forgotten about it. Leo didn't even know where it was. It was the only place in the world where the Moretti eyes couldn't see. We hit the snow line around 3 a.m. The Aston Martin wasn't built for this. It slid on the ice, fishtailing dangerously. I fought the wheel, sweating in the freezing car. "We are almost there," I said, more to myself than to her. We turned onto a dirt track that was barely visible under the snow. The trees pressed in close, their branches scraping the roof of the car like skeletal fingers. Finally, the trees cleared. The cabin sat in a small clearing. It was made of rough-hewn logs, dark and imposing against the white snow. It looked abandoned. It looked cold. It looked like heaven. I stopped the car. I killed the engine. Silence rushed back in, heavy and absolute. No sirens, no music, no gunshots, just the wind howling through the trees. "We made it," Lyra whispered. "For now." I opened my door. The cold hit me instantly, biting through my thin dress shirt. I walked around to the passenger side and opened the door for her. She stepped out. Her heels sank into the snow. She shivered violently. I took off my jacket, torn, bloody, ruined, and wrapped it around her shoulders. It wouldn't do much, but it was all I had. "Come on." I led her to the front door. I found the key under a loose stone on the porch. Some habits never died. The lock was stiff, frozen with age, but it turned with a groan. I pushed the door open. The air inside was stale and freezing. It smelled of dust and pine and old wood smoke. I ushered her inside and locked the door behind us. I threw the deadbolt. I dragged a heavy wooden table in front of the door. It wouldn't stop a bullet. It wouldn't stop a determined hit squad. But it would give us a few seconds. I turned to Lyra. She was standing in the middle of the room, shivering, looking small and lost in the darkness. I walked over to the fireplace. I knelt down. There was wood stacked there, dry and ready. I used my lighter, the one I had used to light 1,000 cigarettes while I watched her from the shadows, to start a fire. The flames caught. They flickered, then grew, casting a warm, orange glow over the room. I stood up and turned to her. We were safe. For a few hours, maybe a few days, the snow would cover our tracks. The isolation would hide us. But the reality of what I had done was settling in. I was a traitor. I was a dead man walking. And I had dragged the woman I loved into the grave with me. Lyra walked toward me. She dropped my jacket on the floor. She stepped into my space, wrapping her arms around my waist, pressing her cold face against my chest. I froze for a second. Then I wrapped my arms around her. I held her so tight it must have hurt. But she didn't complain. "I am sorry," I whispered into her hair. "I am so sorry." She shook her head against my chest. "Don't be sorry," she said. "Just be here." I closed my eyes. I breathed her in. "I'm here," I vowed. "I am right here, and I wasn't going anywhere. Not without a fight. Not without taking half the world with me."
Chapter 15. Lyra. The snow was a white curtain sealing us into a tomb. I stood by the frosted window of the cabin, hugging my arms around my chest. Outside, the wind howled like a dying animal, rattling the loose panes of glass. Inside, the only sound was the crackle of the fire Nero had built, and the steady, heavy rhythm of his breathing. We were trapped. We were miles from civilization, hunted by a crime lord, and freezing in a cabin that smelled of abandonment. And I was furious. The adrenaline of the escape had faded, leaving behind a cold, sharp clarity. The fear of death was there, sure, sitting heavy in my stomach. But it was overshadowed by a burning, twisting rage that had nowhere to go. I turned around. Nero was sitting on a dusty wooden chair near the hearth. He had stripped off his ruined dress shirt. His torso was a map of violence. Bruises from the fight with Leo were already blossoming across his ribs and abdomen. His knuckles were split and raw. He looked exhausted. He looked like a fallen king waiting for the executioner. He was looking at the fire, but I knew he was aware of me. He was always aware of me. "You lied to me," I said. My voice was quiet, but in the silence of the cabin it sounded like a gunshot. Nero didn't move. He didn't look up. "Yeah." "Is that all you have to say?" He flinched. "What do you want me to say, Lyra?" "I want you to explain how you could do that. How you could listen to me pour my heart out to you, night after night, and pretend to be him. How you could let me fall for a lie." He looked up then. The firelight cast shadows across his sharp features, making him look even more dangerous, even more broken. "It wasn't a lie," he said. "The words were true. The feelings were true. The only thing that was fake was the name on the screen." "That matters, Nero. It matters that I thought I was talking to the man I was supposed to marry, but I was talking to his brother. It matters that you tricked me." I walked toward him. The anger was rising, hot and suffocating. "You made me feel crazy," I said, my voice rising. "You made me feel guilty for wanting you when I was supposed to be with him. You played with my head. You played with my heart. I know. Stop saying you know. I grabbed a heavy wool blanket from the back of the sofa and threw it at him. It was a useless gesture, childish and weak, but I needed to do something. I needed to hit him. I needed him to feel a fraction of the confusion I was feeling. He caught the blanket. He didn't defend himself. He just held it, watching me with those dark, tortured eyes. Yell at me, I screamed. Fight back. Tell me I am ungrateful. Tell me I should be happy you saved my life. Do something. He stood up. The blanket fell to the floor. I am not going to fight you, Lyra. You have every right to hate me. You have every right to scream. Tear the place apart if it helps. Break a chair over my head. I won't stop you. His calmness only fueled the fire. He was taking it. He was accepting my rage as his penance, and it made me want to shake him until he shattered. I picked up a tin mug from the table and hurled it at the wall. It clattered loudly, denting the wood. I grabbed a book from a dusty shelf and threw it. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. He didn't flinch. He stood there, shirtless and bruised, offering himself up as a target. Why? I sobbed, the anger cracking into grief. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you just come to me as yourself? Because I am not the good one, he rasped. I stopped. My chest was heaving. My hands were shaking. What? I am not the good one, Lyra. Leo is the light. Leo is the face. Leo is the one people like. I am the one they fear. He took a step toward me, but he stopped when I flinched. He looked at his hands, the knuckles scabbed and bloody. My father. He is sick. In the head. He enjoys pain. He enjoys power. And I have his blood. I have his temper. I have his violence. He looked at me, his expression open and raw. I spent my whole life trying to keep it locked down. I built a cage for myself. Rules. Discipline. Silence. I thought if I never let anyone in, I couldn't hurt them. I thought if I stayed in the dark, the monster would starve. He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Then I met you. And you were so bright. You were so alive. You looked at me on that terrace and I felt the cage rattling. I knew if I got close to you, I would ruin you. I would burn you up. So you pushed me to Leo, I whispered. Yeah, I pushed you to the safe choice. I pushed you to the brother who wouldn't hurt you. But I couldn't stay away. I couldn't stop looking. And when I saw you were unhappy, when I saw you needed someone, I couldn't help myself. He ran a hand through his messy hair. I stole his phone because I was weak. I texted you because I was selfish. I pretended to be him because I thought if I wore his mask, I could be good for you. I thought I could give you what you needed without tainting you with my darkness. I stared at him. The anger was draining out of me, leaving behind a hollow ache. You thought you were protecting me? I said. I was trying to. By lying to me. By letting me think I was in love with him? He shook his head. No. By letting you be in love with the version of me that wasn't dangerous. Night Leo was just me, Lyra. But without the baggage. Without the blood on my hands. Without the fear. He looked down at the floor. I wanted you to have the best parts of me. I didn't want you to have the rest. I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw the bruises on his ribs. I saw the exhaustion in his posture. I saw a man who had spent his entire life convinced he was a villain, trying desperately to do a hero's job in the shadows. He had beaten up his brother for me. He had committed treason for me. He had driven into a snowstorm to save my life. He wasn't a monster. He was just a man who loved so hard he was willing to break himself to keep me safe. And he was an idiot. You really are stupid, aren't you? I said softly. He looked up, surprised. Probably. You think I wanted the good parts? You think I wanted the safe version? I walked toward him. The floorboards creaked under my feet. I stopped inches away from him. I could feel the heat of his skin. I could smell the smoke and the blood and the pine. I didn't fall in love with Knight Leo because he was safe, Nero. I fell in love with him because he understood the dark. He understood what it was like to be trapped. He understood what it was like to carry a burden you didn't ask for. I reached out and touched the bruise on his chest. He hissed in a breath, his muscles twitching under my fingers. Leo didn't understand that, I said. Leo lives in the sun. He doesn't know what it's like to be cold. But you do. I looked up into his eyes. I don't want the mask, Nero. I don't want the prince. I don't want the lie. His eyes searched mine, desperate and hopeful and terrified. What do you want? He whispered. I want the fire, I said. I want the man who broke a mirror because someone hurt me. I want the man who drove 100 miles an hour to get me out of the city. I want the man who is standing here, bleeding and freezing, because he refused to let me go. I moved my hand up to his neck, sliding my fingers into the hair at the nape of his neck. I want you. The real you. The monster and the savior and everything in between. He shuddered. A tremor went through his massive frame. I will hurt you, he warned, his voice thick with emotion. I am not easy, Lyra. I am jealous. I am possessive. I have a darkness in me that doesn't go away. Good, I said. I am not looking for easy. I am looking for real. I pulled his head down, and I kissed him. It wasn't like the kiss in the car. It wasn't desperate or frantic. It was acclaiming. It was a seal on a contract we had been writing since the night we met. He hesitated for a second, his body rigid with restraint. Then he broke. He groaned and wrapped his arms around me, lifting me off my feet. He crushed me against his chest, burying his face in my neck. He kissed me like he was starving, like I was the only air in the room. We stumbled backward. My back hit the wall, and he pressed against me, his weight heavy and perfect. I wrapped my legs around his waist. I held on to him as if the world was ending. Maybe it was. Maybe the soldiers were coming. Maybe we would freeze to death in this cabin. But in that moment, I didn't care. He pulled back, breathless, his forehead resting against mine. I love you, he rasped. The words sounded like they were torn out of him. I love you so much it hurts. I love you too, I whispered. He looked at me, his eyes shining. I am sorry, he said again. Shut up, I said. Just shut up and hold me. He did. He carried me to the dusty sofa in front of the fire. He sat down and pulled me into his lap, wrapping the wool blanket around us, both. We sat there for hours as the storm raged outside. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. He traced the line of my spine with his hand. I listened to his heartbeat slow down, settling into a steady, strong rhythm. I looked at the flames dancing in the fireplace. We were in the middle of a disaster. We had no plan. We had no allies. But as I curled into the chest of the man everyone feared, the man who thought he was unlovable, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't the victim in this story, and he wasn't the villain. We were just two people who had found a way to burn together without turning to ash. And if the world wanted to try and put us out, they were going to have to burn with us.
Chapter 16. Nero. The storm broke on the third morning. The wind died down, leaving behind a silence so deep it felt heavy. The sun cracked over the horizon, turning the white world outside the window into a blinding field of diamonds. It was beautiful, and it meant our time was up. I stood by the window, watching the tree line. The snow was deep enough to slow down a car, but not a helicopter. If the dawn was still hunting, and he was, they would be here by noon. I looked back at the bed. Lyra was still asleep. She was buried under a mountain of blankets, only the top of her dark head visible. We had spent the last 3 days in that bed. We had spent them talking, fighting, fucking, and sleeping. We had lived a lifetime in 72 hours. I had told her everything. About the bodies I buried. About the nights I couldn't sleep. About the ledger I kept hidden in a server that only I could access. She had told me about her songs, about the way the light hit the piano in her club at sunset, about how she used to hum to drown out the sound of her parents fighting. It was the best 3 days of my life, and now I had to end it. I walked to the kitchen counter. I picked up the burner phone. The battery was in the red, but it had enough juice for one call. I didn't call the Don. I couldn't negotiate with him. He was a rabid dog. You didn't talk to a rabid dog. You put it down. I dialed Leo. It rang once, twice. "You're alive?" Leo answered. His voice was tight, tired. "For now," I said. "Dad is tearing the city apart, Nero. He has guys checking every safe house, every rental property in the state. He's offering a bounty that would make a saint pull a trigger." "I know. Where are you?" "Somewhere he won't look. Yet." I took a breath. This was it. The gamble. "I want to make a trade, Leo." "A trade? You stole my fiancée and beat the shit out of me. What do you have to trade?" "The throne." Silence on the other end. "I'm out," I said. "I'm done. I don't want the life. I don't want the title. I don't want any of it." "You're the enforcer," Leo said, confused. "You're the heir's right hand." "And you're the heir who's tired of waiting for the old man to die," I cut in. "You want the power, Leo? You want to run this city without Dad breathing down your neck? I can give it to you." "How?" "The Black Ledger." I heard Leo's breath hitch. He knew the rumors. Everyone did. The family kept records of everything, bribes to judges, payoffs to senators, the locations of bodies from the 90s. It was the nuclear option, the leverage that kept us safe, but also the leverage that could bury us. "Dad keeps that in his head," Leo said. "It's not written down." "It is," I corrected. "I digitized it 5 years ago, encrypted it, stored it on a ghost server. Dad thinks he's the only one who knows the codes. He's wrong. I built the system." I looked out the window at the snow. "I give you the key, Leo. With that ledger, you own the judges. You own the cops. But more importantly, you own Dad. You can force him to retire. You can send him to Florida and tell him if he ever steps foot in New York again, you'll leak the files that put him in federal prison for the rest of his life." "You would do that?" Leo whispered. "You would betray him like that?" "He betrayed me first," I said coldly. "He made us monsters. I'm done being his monster." "And what do you want?" "Immunity," I said. "You call off the hit. You tell the crews I'm out and that I'm off limits. If anyone comes for me, you handle it." "Done." "And Lyra," I added, my voice dropping. "Her father's debt is wiped, permanently. And her parents, they leave. Today. You put them on a plane to somewhere far away, and you make sure they know that if they ever come back, if they ever try to contact her, the deal is void." "That's a lot, Nero." "It's the price of the crown, brother. Take it or leave it." A long pause. I could hear the gears turning in Leo's head. He loved the lifestyle. He loved the fame. But he craved the respect. He craved the actual power that our father hoarded. "Send me the key," Leo said. "It's sent. Check your secure email." I had sent it before I dialed. I knew he would take it. "I see it," Leo said, his voice changing. It sounded stronger, heavier. "It's... Jesus, Nero. It's everything." "Yeah, it's the keys to the kingdom. Don't crash the car." "What about Lyra?" he asked. "Is she coming back?" I looked at the bed. Lyra was stirring. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, her hair a wild halo around her face. She smiled when she saw me. My heart cracked. "She's free," I said. "That's the deal." I hung up. I broke the phone in half and tossed it into the trash. It was done. I was a civilian. I was a nobody. And Lyra was safe. She walked out of the bedroom, wrapped in the blanket, looking like a sleepy angel. She came up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist, pressing her cheek to my bare back. "Who were you talking to?" she mumbled. I turned around in her arms. I looked down at her face, the face I had memorized, the face I loved more than my own life. "Leo," I said. She stiffened. "Leo? Why? Is he coming?" "No, he's calling off the hit." Her eyes widened. "What? How?" "I gave him what he wanted. I gave him the family. I'm out, Lyra, completely. The Irish, the debts, your parents. It's all gone. Leo is handling it. Your parents are being put on a plane as we speak. They can't hurt you anymore." She stared at me, processing the words. Tears welled up in her eyes. You did that?" "I told you I would fix it." "So we're safe?" "You're safe." I stepped back, breaking the circle of her arms. I walked to the table where I had left the paperwork I had prepared, or rather, the digital transfer I had set up on my tablet. "The club is yours," I said. "Free and clear. No debts. No strings. Your apartment is paid up for a year. You can go back to the city. You can sing. You can live your life without looking over your shoulder." She smiled, a bright, blinding thing. "We can go back?" "You can go back." The smile faltered. "Me?" I clenched my fists at my sides. This was the hardest part. This was the part where I had to be strong enough to let her go. "I can't go back, Lyra. Not to that life. And you deserve the light. You deserve the stage and the applause and a man who doesn't have a trail of bodies behind him." "Stellan." "I'm setting you free," I said, my voice rough. "That was the promise. I protect you. I save you. And then I let you go." She looked at me. She looked at the tablet on the table. She looked at the door. Then she laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was incredulous. "You're an idiot," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She walked over to the table. She picked up the tablet. She looked at the transfer documents, the freedom I had bought her with my birthright. Then she threw the tablet onto the couch. "I don't want it," she said. "Lyra, listen to me. This is everything you wanted. You're free." "I'm not free if I'm not with you," she shouted. She closed the distance between us, grabbing the lapels of the flannel shirt I had thrown on. She shook me. "Do you still not get it?" she demanded, her eyes blazing with that wildfire I worshipped. "I don't want a safe life. I don't want a normal life. I want you. I want the man who burns the world down for me. I want the man who braids my hair and listens to my heartbeat. I am dangerous, Lyra. I am broken." "So am I," she cried. "We're both broken, Nero. That's why we fit. You think I can go back to singing jazz for tourists after this? You think I can go back to dating boys who don't know what it's like to survive?" She pressed her hand to my chest, right over my heart. "You gave up your family for me," she whispered. "You gave up your power. You gave up everything. Because you're worth it. Then let me be worth it by staying." She looked up at me, her gaze steady and unyielding. "I choose you, Nero. Not because I have to, not because of a debt. I choose you because you are my home. And if you try to make me leave, I will just follow you. I will follow you to the ends of the earth. So you might as well save us both the gas money and just kiss me." I looked at her. I looked at the fierce, beautiful, reckless woman who had walked into the dark to find me. I realized she was right. I couldn't save her from me, because she didn't want to be saved. She wanted to burn with me. The last wall around my heart crumbled into dust. "You're so stubborn," I choked out. "I learned from the best." I grabbed her face. I kissed her. It was a kiss of surrender, a kiss of promise. "Okay," I breathed against her lips. "Okay, you stay." "I stay," she confirmed. "But we're not going back to New York. Not yet." "Where are we going?" I smiled, and for the first time in my life, it felt like it reached my eyes. "Wherever you want, Wildfire. We have the whole world." She grinned back. "I've always wanted to see Italy." "Italy it is." I picked her up, spinning her around in the center of the dusty cabin. She laughed, and the sound chased away the last of the shadows in the corners of the room. I wasn't the enforcer anymore. I wasn't the monster. I was just a man who had found his fire, and I was never, ever going to let it go out.